My mom is a big Harry Potter fan because she is a big fan of Alan Rickman, but completely supportive of me as a trans man. You know, I have to say, if someone was going to be a Harry Potter fan, it being a transient property of being pro Alan Rickman has to be one of the best possible reasons, right? Like that's a solid um lead in, you know? No hate. I mean a little bit of hate, I guess, but not too much. He's dead? Oh my god, yeah, he's dead. I completely memory hold that. I forgot how old he was. He died in 2016? No, wait, he wasn't that old. He was 69. That's not that old. Why'd he die? Pancreatic cancer. Damn. What's up? I'm being rewarded and punished for my bad decision making. I stayed up late last night. I had to get a little bit of work done after the partner went to bed. I couldn't sleep afterwards, so I did. What did I do? I booted up Slay the Spire 2, and God did reward me for my diligence because I got 2 wins. I got 2 wins. I got 2 wins. The Regent Ascension 3 and the Bone Mancer, whatever the fuck her name is, Ascension 4, you know? Bro got 2 wins, yeah. I was on a bit of a loss streak with the region. How good is Slay the Spire? Very good. It is the best roguelike deck builder ever, and Slay the Spire 2 looks like it's better than the first. Oh, is Radical Dino here? Can a white boy be racist for a bit? Is that allowed? Um has wokeness been defeated? Can I make my point? There was recently a big content patch in Slay the Spire 2, and it made the game harder. It changed some of the enemies, and it made it harder to go like infinite on some decks. And the game has been getting bombarded by negative reviews exclusively from the Chinese. Now, I've seen some of the discourse, the fallout from this, and my understanding is that the average Chinese player of Slay the Spire 2 is like an actual baboon. Um, Save scums, always rushes the same infinite deck, gets mad if it doesn't work, doesn't engage with the game. I don't know if that's true, but whew, look at that, man. It's because they don't have channels of communication. The dev talked about that in an interview. That makes a little bit of sense. I appreciate that. That makes a little bit of sense. I play Warframe and the Chinese players riot whenever the devs crack down on power creep. It's insane how spoiled their players are. I'm feeling a little white boys feeling a little bit of racial animus this morning. Vosh, I need your thoughts on this. This is a tweet with 41 likes and 61 comments, and it's about something that I don't even know what it's about. What the fuck are you talking about? Left brain, can you clarify what the fuck you're talking about? What is this? Literally, what is this? What do you... I need your thoughts on this. Completely no context, just a void of information. What is this? I'm mad at you now. Tell me. You have 10 seconds or I'm banning you. Okay? Oh. It's in reference to David Scott dying in office. What do you think my position on this is going to be, out of curiosity? Oh my god, head of digital engagement for the ACLU? Oh shit. They mean the Congressional Black Caucus. This isn't a new conversation, find a black person to uplift. In my opinion, I find it very weird and kind of racist when the discourse boils down to, like, white people can't have an opinion on this, go find a black person and give them $5. I don't really know what you expect the outcome from this to be long term as like a heuristic for engaging in discourse, but it's not a good one. Go find a black person to uplift. Me running out to the street. I love your hair. Running back inside. Okay. Can I have an opinion on it now? I love your hair. Can I touch it? No? Okay. Bye. Wow, what a bitch. Anyway, what's up, guys? I'm ready to have an opinion on the Congressional Black Caucus. Woke 1 coded? They gotta fill the ACLU's ranks with woke 2 coded people. Ranger, generally speaking, bills pertaining to the budget don't have to pass the filibuster. The Congressional Black Caucus loved Hillary. In general, they're a pretty conservative bunch. The DNC's loyal soldiers. I was going to reschedule marijuana, but then I got high. Nice meme. Nice Afro Man reference. I need your thoughts on this. What is it? 42-minute talk from a channel called Foreign Policy. Adam 2's on global uncertainty and moving beyond the poly crisis. 1s and 2s, episode 238. You need my opinion on this? You need it? How much is my opinion worth to you? How much money do you have? Link your account and routing number to your checking account, please.
So this might be beyond polycrisis. And the other point, which will be very much, I imagine, on your minds, I was at a JP Morgan dinner last night, and it was very much on minds people's there, which is that the financial markets just don't show the stress. Right? So there is a
what am I giving my I don't know what I'm giving my opinion on. You just fucking linked me a guy. How long do I have to wait? What opinion?
That in the geopolitical world have been crying wolf for God knows how long, and sensible people in the market look at their world and say, is there really a risk to dollar hegemony? I don't see it. Maybe I need to slightly rebalance my portfolio away from the US, but I'm not selling America, I'm rebalancing, right? Because I was overcommitted to the US. And
what do you think of his fashion? I will warn you, because I got slightly less sleep than I would like, though better sleep than I've been getting for the past couple of weeks, that you have to come up with new material, okay? You have to wait until it looks interesting. You people ask for a fit check on every guy with a t-shirt on the screen, all right? You need to... You're so tedious sometimes. You boil everything down to gray sludge, okay? This is why you can't hang out with your friend group anymore unless you initiate. River, you don't want me to be mean? Oh yeah, River? If you don't like being held, then why did you spend 3 hours laying in bed purring last night? How about that? Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. What a good baby. She's remarkably tolerant of that. Yeah, you just gotta get him used to it. All right, out you go. Out. Let's go. Go, go, go. Out. Okay. Who's the school anyway? I don't know if they're a ghoul. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. No one gives me any context. Nobody tells me anything. I don't know what's going on. Do you know what's going on? I don't know what's going on. What's this? What's that? I don't know. Chinese people. Chinese people. Ugh, Chinese people. Honestly. The boy who cried content? Yeah, no kidding. That's why you have to ignore the content recommendations channel. Because people will either link you a 2-hour video and be like, Voss should cover this, or they'll link you like their 53 viewer favorite podcast, and ask me to cover like an opinion that they know I'm going to agree with. Look at the Palantir thing. I looked at the Palantir thing. All right. Already did that shit. All right, what's on the feed? People are mad as hell about this. Why? I don't know. Let's find out.
Engels wrote about
Engels? What is this, math class?
the concept of social murder. And Brian Thompson, as the United Healthcare CEO, was engaging in a tremendous amount of social murder, the systematized forms of violence, the structural violence of poverty, the for-profit paywalled system of healthcare in this country, and the consequences of that are tremendous amounts of pain, tremendous amounts of violence, tremendous amounts of deaths. And that was a fascinating story for me, because Americans are very draconian about crime and punishment. They're very black and white on this issue. And yet, because of the pervasive pain that the private healthcare system had created for the average American.
The fucked up thing is that like everyone on Earth, not specifically Americans, but everyone on Earth, on an intuitive level, understands this. They understand that Brian Thompson was a death merchant, that there are people in power who use their power to inflict mass suffering. This is like a common proletarian opinion. This goes back. It's not just modernity, right? You could go 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. Oh, the king's wheat tariffs, whatever. You could go back at any point. People have believed some version of this. But uniquely, I think, and in their deference to institutionalism and civility, the Democratic Party is like the only group that doesn't acknowledge it. I'm overstating the case. Republicans also pretend not to, but I think that the Democrats are the furthest from grappling with this. Because Republicans will, when it's politically convenient for them, Republicans will go, oh, well, the law is irrelevant because this person in power has used the law to create so much suffering, right? Like they do this all the time with, for example, abortion. Fantastic example, right? If you genuinely believe that abortion is murder, if you're a lunatic, you can justify a lot of bad behavior, which the Republican Party has justified and enabled and endorsed and defended for decades, consistently. And that's because, I mean, they're hypocrites, of course, and their positions are bad, but they do understand the underlying logic, which is that if people believe strongly enough that those in power are using the law to get away with doing things that shouldn't be illegal, or sorry, that shouldn't be legal, that should be illegal, there's some moral leeway there, right? I think everyone understands this to some extent. I mean, the Holocaust was legal, right? Like, obviously, the law is not like a metric for morality. Of course, in a good society, Brian Thompson wouldn't have been shot because Brian Thompson would already be in jail. Like, what Brian Thompson was doing should have been illegal. He was a death merchant. It should be illegal to, I mean, the private health insurance industry, like, as it exists in general, is obviously very, very bad. But, like, even insofar as it exists as a private sector, what he was doing, which was, every day you come up with some new harebrained scheme to find ways to deny, poor and old people their health insurance coverage for cancer treatment or whatever, using AI to deny people, fucking up claims, forcing hospitals and nurses and orderlies to beg you for, 3 hours for every patient to cover something. Like, obviously, all of that should have been illegal. There should be some standard of medical practice. You know, an insurer is as much a part of the pipeline for medical treatment as a doctor is. They might not perform the procedure directly, but they are vital in making sure that a patient can actually access it in the first place and not, you know, die in a debtor's prison afterwards if it's not covered. So in a good world, Brian Thompson wouldn't have been shot because they don't allow guns in prisons unless you're a guard. Anyway, I don't know. There's some like feigned Democrat outrage over this, but everyone understands this. You know, everyone understands this. I used to think this was basic knowledge, but it's really not. I truly feel like the average person gets this. You know? It's the same reason why everyone was so blasé about Charlie Kirk being killed, because Charlie Kirk was a hate merchant. He's a miserable, monstrous piece of shit who dedicated his life to making other people's lives worse. He took money and lied, and that's all he did. And he had no real beliefs or character or convictions. He just was a machine made to make the world worse. And for that reason, I think people really don't have, you know, many qualms about mocking him after his death, because no one cares, because no one should care. I think people understand this fundamentally. The era we've lived in, this like imposed false civility, really crumbles when you reconcile it with the fact that the Republican Party is a death cult. You know? Like, a lot of the presumed civility that we've lived under and dealt with and justified really falls apart when politically it is the goal of the other half of the country to end the world and kill as many people as possible on the way there. You know, it really falls apart, like real quick, you know?
I saw so many people.
Oh, also, one other thing. It is worth pointing out that we would not be having this conversation about Brian Thompson if he was in a third world country. If Brian Thompson was a corrupt pharmaceutical or insurer or healthcare leader in like Nigeria or Mali or, you know, Zimbabwe or whatever, and everyone in the West, through like extensive reporting, everyone knew that he, in order to enrich himself and his shareholders, had directly caused the death of tens of thousands of people. And then you read a story about how like it'd be like corrupt healthcare baron shot by enraged former patient. You know, if you read something like that, no one in the West would care. Absolutely nobody. Not a single, nobody here would care. Because we would be like, good for them. Everyone, it wouldn't even be like a partisan opinion. Everyone would point and go like, oh, well, yeah, obviously, like, their laws are corrupt, so it's good that they, like, it's not good that that's the system they live under, but it's, like, in this brief moment, it's good they were able to, like, you know, surpass the limits of their system, right? This would be, like, an unambiguously the bipartisan position everyone would get. It wouldn't be much of an argument, really. It's only because it's our rules that failed that we even have this conversation.
Immediately understand why this death had taken place.
Robin Hoods are allowed outside the USA? Yeah. What interview is this? What's the NYT? It's NYT, yeah, NYT interview, yeah.
Currency scheme that people are engaging in.
Mm-hmm. Would you steal from Whole Foods?
You want to go first? Well,
right, guys.
I'm pro stealing from big corporations because, you know, they steal quite a bit more from their own workers. However, one thing that might even help your ethical dilemma is the fact that the automated process that they designed, these companies know will increase shrink, right? So it's actually factored in. The lemons that you stole are factored into the bottom line of these mega corporations regardless, and they still end up having increased profit margins because they no longer have to pay the cashiers that they used to hire, as opposed to this automated system, knowing full well that people are still going to be able to steal.
I actually disagree with this on like procedural grounds. I think it's actually very civilizationally destabilizing. My position, it seems contradictory, but I think it's actually a good one. I don't think you should steal from grocery stores, but if you see someone stealing, you should never report them. You shouldn't commit the crime, but you should abet it, essentially. because you're dealing with kind of like a tiered system of moral incentives here, where the moral harm of punishing a person for stealing food is like basically always greater than the harm of them stealing the food in the first place. But at the same time, the long-term social consequences of everyone feeling comfortable stealing does eventually lead to a bunch of deleterious social effects. Not just for like the bottom line for the businesses, but in terms of like everyone's employment and like job security for people in the area, and then people start to divest from areas with higher crime, which leads to like long-term economic consequences, stuff like that, you know. But I don't think it's like a tremendous like a tremendous moral crime, I guess. It's sort of complicated, you know, I think. I guess it depends on what a person's stealing. You know, if a person's stealing baby food, there's that. If a person's stealing a Switch 2, I mean, I don't know.
Steal a lot more efficiently, as a matter of fact, through the automated process.
Totally. Well, I was looking things up and shrinking.
Everyone feel comfortable stealing and breaking traffic laws? Yeah. It's a lot like traffic laws, because everybody knows that if you're at a dead-end country road at 11 p.m. and no one's there and there's a red light and you know you're going to be waiting there for like a minute before you're allowed to go, like everyone knows, there's literally like no harm to just driving through. There's no one, you know, you can just slowly drive through. There's no harm. However, if you tell everyone, yeah, when the driving law is stupid, you don't have to follow it, then everyone will die. Everyone dies right after you say that, you know? Because then all the people who didn't need to hear that are like, yeah, you're right, I can take a right turn. And then they, 9/11, but from the ground floor. So it's one of those like, the wrong, it's good information that the wrong people can't have access to, I think.
Is roughly equal internally as externally. Like they expect it from their employees that they are sort of disenfranchising constantly.
Yeah.
But what about the argument that if everyone just starts stealing wantonly from these self-checkout machines, Whole Foods will eventually raise the prices?
Yeah, chaos, full chaos. Let's go. I mean, look, I'm in favor of fast and free buses and also government-owned storefronts. And, two of those policies, the mayor of this beautiful city is currently working on.
Would you encourage stealing in the same way from a Mamdani-run city-owned grocery store with lower prices? And why?
I would not. Because I feel like that's taxpayer funded, and the prices are this union labor, and the prices are all.
I think it's a bit inconsistent, but whatever. It's not. I don't know. I'm not going to accept lessons on moral perfectionism from people who have an issue with shoplifting, but not with Israel genociding Palestine. I'm not, because I know that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? You get like you get tutted from establishment Democrats who are like, this is a moral outrage, Brian Thompson shoplifting, and then they're like gleefully sending more 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. So I don't need the, I don't really care. Would you steal Nazi gold? Would you steal a kid's lunch money? What if the kid is a Nazi and their lunch money is Nazi gold? Yeah, man, this goes a long way with liberals. Lefties are pro-theft. Free public transit and shoplifting are both in the ticket grade. I do think it's bad to conflate those two, Like, it's one of the reasons I think that public transit should be free. Not only is it, like, public transit is a massive regressive tax, because if you're, like, it's a flat cost to take the train or the bus, and rich people, by and large, outside of, like, maybe NYC, are not taking the train or the bus. So it overwhelmingly affects the poor, but it's also necessary for the city to function. So it just acts as a regressive tax. I think that they should be, I think they should be free. But there is a difference between the train being free and skipping the train fare. Because skipping the train fare is bad, but the train being free is good, Would you steal from baby Hitler? Yeah, I would, for sure. I wouldn't even think about it, to be honest. Why is skipping the train fare bad? Because, and it's gonna sound like cucked, but it's just true. By and large, following the law as a norm is good. Because if you don't, there are a million ways to break the law when it comes to stuff like this, and a couple of ways to follow them. And if you open up the door to people breaking the law, they might not always break it in the way you like. The people shoplifting are not all shoplifting food as like hungry mothers feeding 2 children or whatever. A lot of them are shoplifting electronics so they can resell them on eBay. You know? You want lawfulness. You just want the laws to accommodate people's needs and desires and biases, right? Like it's in the Durkheimian sense, you know, the idea of law and crime being a point of social agitation between the state and the people. You want to identify those points of agitation and work on them, but ideally you don't want the agitation. You want the law and the people to accommodate each other. You don't want people to just like, you know, for it to all be meaningless. I mean, are they not shoplifting electronics to sell to get food? No, not in a lot of cases. There are, believe it or not, plenty of people who commit petty crime just because they're kind of like pieces of shit. Organized shoplifters who just take a bunch of stuff and resell it. They could get a job, but they don't want to. They're just like assholes. that is a thing. It's not that uncommon either, like relative to the total percentage of people who are doing shoplifting. I don't think that we should, you know, reinvent the Gestapo trying to stop those guys. I just think we have to be realistic about what crime looks like. It's like, oh, a lot of homeless people are like normal, but a lot of them are fucking crazy. A lot of people who have mental illness are completely harmless, you know, on the streets, whatever, but sometimes they're definitely not. You just have to acknowledge the fact that when you open the door up to like, you know, asocial behavior, you're potentially, you're ranging from like neutral to negative in most cases, you know? So ideally, you just want to make it so that the law isn't like grinding against these people's daily needs, you know? Speaking of homeless, CA gubernatorial debate was was last night. Oh yeah. I think we should have some time for that. We have some time for that. Do we want to look at that before talking to the D-man? Excuse me. Has Katie Wilson done anything? Well, I think she's mayor. Hassan goes on NYT. Pushes pro-crime ticket. I'm so good at titling. Are we in the D club then? Always were. All right. Do-do. Bada-ba-boom. You know what? I don't think we have time to do that before the conversation. We can do that after the conversation. What we can do before the conversation, however, don't autoplay a video at me, CNN. Who the fuck do you think you are? Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Deep state? Yeah, that's true. Trump is hitting the big red button. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Trump reclassifies state-licensed medical marijuana as a less dangerous drug, an historic shift. Thank you, Biden, for not doing this.
Since medical marijuana is being reclassified as a less dangerous drug. In a historic shift, President Donald Trump's acting attorney general signed an order making the change on Thursday. The order doesn't legalize marijuana under federal law, but it does change the way it's regulated. It also gives licensed medical marijuana operators a major tax break and eases some barriers into cannabis research. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche said the Department of Justice was delivering on President Trump's promise to
flailing attempt at damage control during the midterms, right? Yeah. Honestly, yet another, and I'm sorry I keep bringing it back to this, but yet another massive fucking L for the Democrats at not really pushing for nationwide marijuana legalization, when, for one, it would be overwhelmingly popular, and for two, basically every blue state already has legal marijuana. Like, it's such an obvious, like, the skew on legalizing abortion between Democrats and Republicans is almost as distinct as the one on abortion, you know?
expand Americans' access to medical treatment options. It's a major policy shift, long sought by advocates who say cannabis should never have been treated like heroin by the federal government. But critics say the Trump administration's order sends a confusing message about marijuana's harm to the American public. And there are still lingering racial disparities of federal marijuana criminalization. The Trump administration's declassification.
Biden did this, then Trump canceled it. I thought, my understanding, Masaigu, my liberal friend, my understanding was that Biden, I don't know, opened a task force to investigate rescheduling marijuana, whereas Trump is just doing it. Am I incorrect in that? Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, everyone thank Joe Rogan. Incorrect, it's just different wording. They were both executive orders to do the same thing. Well, that is not what I recall. Let me take a look. Biden announced on Thursday his admin plans to reclassify cannabis from the most restrictive category to a moderately restricted category. Category plans. Next step in the rescheduling process begun by Biden October 2022. So when did this take effect? DOJ published formal guidance laying out the reclassification. 60-day comment period commences. What happened after this? What happened after the comment period? My understanding was that this never actually, like, went through. Reason why it got slowed down is because the DEA is run by insane Republicans. Okay, well... So it never actually took effect?
Some breaking news now from Washington, D.C. on the future of the marijuana industry here and across the country. In the last hour, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche announced that state-licensed medical marijuana is being reclassified from a Schedule I to a less restrictive Schedule III drug. That means that cannabis will no longer be treated the same as harder drugs like heroin. For us here in Washington state, where recreational marijuana is already...
Trump likes to take credit for things accomplished by his predecessors. Yeah, sure, I acknowledge that. It's just I'm a little bit negatively disposed towards Biden because he ran on the decriminalization of marijuana, or at least it was something heavily signaled during the 2020 primary process. And then when Biden actually became president, he fired all of his staffers who tested positive for weed and shelved the policy. And waited until, I guess, 2024 to go ahead with the rescheduling. So, I mean, like, he definitely didn't.
Legal. This opens the door for more cannabis research without fear of federal prosecution and opens up financial pathways for dispensaries to work with banks. Only 2 states, Idaho and Kansas, still ban marijuana.
But I guess, yeah, it seems like Trump's basically just doing what Biden did or failed to do. He did pardon federal prisoners, I think, but that was all. I don't know how effective that was. Aren't most of the prisoners in state prison, though? Yeah, but the president can't commute their sentences. A little less info there than I thought, then. What's this? Oh, yeah, I saw this. For the first time since the end of the Bush presidency, people think that Democrats are better for the economy than Republicans in a Fox News poll. Noteworthy that, or worth noting that Fox News polling is not particularly biased, at least not, you know, significantly so. Oh my God, man, look at that. D plus 20 in mid-July 2006. Oh my God. They really did not like Bush, huh? That was before the 2008 financial crisis. Hasn't that always been the case, though? No, people typically think Republicans are better for the economy, even though that is one of the areas they are consistently the worst in, like every single time, with no exceptions. They keep causing recessions over and over and over again. So if anything, it'd be biased towards Republicans, no, so it's especially revealing. No, that's my point. Yeah, the fact that if people are favoring Democrats in this, you know, it's meaningful. Yeah, they see Republicans as shrewd businessmen because they're, you know, fucking stupid. All right, really quick, really quick. How'd the governor debate go? How'd my boy Steyer do?
I've said that we will give the bulk of our only bill.
Governor,
Mr.
who
Hilton.
is a partner on these issues,
Mr. Hilton,
with the president and
Short.
his team.
Nikki.
Mr. Steyer, you are the only billionaire in this race.
Fucking white Nikes with a business suit, man. Kill me. Leave me behind.
According to reports, you and your wife paid $5.4 million in federal taxes in 2024. You have said repeatedly, quote, tax me more. How much more should you be paying? And there's nothing preventing you from paying more. Have you? So you have 60 seconds.
So let me say this. I'm the only.
What the fuck do you mean? There's nothing preventing you from paying more? The point isn't that he personally should pay more. It's that people like him should pay more, including him. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, if you think wealthy people should be taxed more, why don't you just give all your money? Why not? Why change the system when you could do something ineffective for no reason?
Only billionaire on the ballot, Nikki, but I'm not the only billionaire in this race. The billionaires and corporations are spending big in this race to oppose me and to support the other people on this stage. In 2024, corporations spent $540 million to lobby in Sacramento. They are literally spending tens of millions of dollars against me. I'm the billionaire who wants to tax other billionaires. I'm the billionaire who's taking on the electric monopolies and trying to break up their power. I'm the billionaire who wants to tax the oil companies and make polluters pay. So when you say I'm the only billionaire in the race, yes, but I'm the person who is the change agent in this state. I'm the person who's taking on the funded corporate interests who are driving up costs for Californians in every place. No one wants to take them on. I'm doing it. They're spending tens of millions. And let me say this. On Earth Day, the oil companies dropped $5 million today against me to fight me on Earth Day. Thank you very much.
Mr. Steyer, thank you. And I just want to clarify for people watching this right now, two parts of the question. You said tax me more. How much more? And there's nothing preventing you from paying more taxes, have you?
Sorry, Mr. Steyer, you answered intelligently. We want you to get the retard clip chimp bait questions answered, please. We understand you substantively answered the question. What we're looking for is something, you know, a little bit more like low IQ.
My wife and I have said that we will give the bulk of our money away while we're alive and in the process of doing that. But me paying more taxes is not the answer. I've said I believe
You can
people
say
should.
that again, Tom.
Wait, no,
Mr.
Stephen,
Hilton,
let me finish. That's
Mr.
not fair.
Hilton, Mr. Hilton.
I've said one person putting more money into the system.
Mr. Hilton, if you guys are both talking, people at home won't be able to hear you. So
if
continue,
one
Mr.
person
Steyer.
puts more money into the government, that doesn't solve it. We need structural change. And in every one of the places where Californians are being ripped off, where it's impossible for them to make rent at the end of the month,
Mr. Steyer,
I'm taking
thank you.
on the special interests, and they're fighting back.
Mr. Steyer.
They're the person who are
Mr.
coming
Steyer,
after me
thank
because
you.
they're scared of me.
Mr. Steyer, thank you. Frank.
Ms. Porter, you've acknowledged that your interactions with an aide and with a reporter captured on videos which went viral were, in your words, a bad look, and that you could have done better. What have you done to address those concerns? And as a person who frequently speaks about being a parent on the campaign trail, what would you tell your own kids if they ever faced a boss like that? You have 60 seconds.
I apologized that day to that staffer 4 years ago. And I took responsibility then, and I have taken responsibility since, acknowledging that it was not the right way to treat someone. And that is a big...
Except, like, she's still like that. Apparently she's like that with her husband. She was like that with that one reporter. Where's that? Hold on. I'm sorry, because I'm not going to watch the whole fucking gubernatorial debate. Where's that clip? Katie Porter freak out interview. This one, the CBS interview. Who are we rooting for? Tom Steyer.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, ma'am?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. So you don't
I
think
feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
Well, to those voters. Okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
A California gubernatorial hopeful snapped at a CBS News reporter and tried to storm out of an interview after being asked a simple question about President Trump. Ex-California Representative Katie...
I feel like it actually looks worse without the editing. Can I get it without the editing?
Redistricting. What do you think of the governor's plan?
I support the governor's plan.
What do you say to the 40% of California voters who you'll need in order to win, who voted for Trump?
How would I need them in order to win, ma'am?
Well, unless you think you're going to get 60% of the vote. You think you'll get 60%. Everybody who did not vote for Trump will vote for you. That's what you're thinking.
In a general election, yes. If it is me versus a Republican, I think that I will win the people who did not vote for Trump.
What if it's you versus another Democrat?
I don't intend that to be the case.
So how do you not intend that to be the case? Are you going to ask them not to run?
No, I'm saying I'm going to build the support. I have the support already in terms of name recognition. And so I'm going to do the very best I can to make sure that we get through this primary in a really strong position. But let me be clear with you.
You're calling her the white Jasmine Crockett.
I represented Orange County. I represented a purple area. I have stood on my own 2 feet and won Republican votes before. That's not something every candidate in this race can say. If you're from a deep...
It is a dumb question. Ain't no Republican winning in California. First of all, I encourage you to look up the history of gubernatorial races in California. Second of all, Gavin Newsom might as well be a Republican. Third of all, no, if you want to win in general, you want to appeal to a broad coalition, including people who disagree with you. Like, you should have an answer to how are you going to appeal to Trump supporters. But you can't just... It's the same thing Jasmine Crockett did. It's the like, well, I'm not even going to try. Okay, then maybe we should have someone up here who will.
Blue area, if you're from LA or you're from Oakland, you don't have an experience.
But you just said you don't need those Trump voters.
Well, you asked me if I needed them to win.
So you don't
I
think
feel like this is unnecessarily argumentative. What is your question?
Her temper is so short.
The question is the same thing I asked everybody, that this is being called the empowering voters to stop Trump's power grab. Every other candidate has answered this question. This is not argumentative.
And I said I support it.
So, and the question is, what do you say to the 40% of voters who voted for Trump?
Oh, I'm happy to say that. It's the do you need them to win part that I don't understand.
She hates even being asked a question about her beliefs. Yeah, the thing that's crazy to me, and I feel like a lot of Democrat politicians are like this, which is like, I don't know, if I'm being asked a question by someone, because I've been interviewed plenty of times, right? I love talking about my beliefs. If I was a candidate, I feel like I'd have a prepared answer for this, and I would like giving it. I'd be like, yeah, here's my answer. Like, yeah, here's me. Yeah, pep it up. Love answering questions about me. I'm a politician. But here she's like indignant at the idea of being questioned. It's like they hate democracy. Like they don't like having to run. It's like a annoying precursor to the real point of being a politician, which is fiddling with numbers once you're in office.
Answer the question as you have it written, and I'll answer it.
And we've also asked the other candidates, do you think you need any of those 40% of California voters to win? And you're saying, no, you don't.
No, I'm saying I'm going to try to win every vote I can. And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, to those voters, okay, so you...
What the fuck?
And what I'm saying to you is that...
Well, those voters, okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
Every other candidate has
it was a very basic question.
I want to have a pleasant, positive conversation in which you ask me about every issue on this list. And if every question you're going to make up a follow-up question, then we're never going to get there.
Ms.
And
Porter,
we're just going to circle around.
I am an investigative
I have never
reporter.
had to do this before, ever.
You've never had to have a conversation with
to end
a
an
reporter?
interview.
Okay, but every other candidate has done this.
What part of I'm me? I'm running for governor because I'm a leader. So
just like so entitled, so indignant and arrogant, and like, how dare you get in my way? Before this interview, you guys know she was like expected to be the winner. Now she doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. But prior to this interview, she was the expected winner in the California governor's race. So I guess in her head, she thought like, well, all this democracy bullshit is just an annoying theater performance I have to get through in order to get to power, you know?
I am going to make...
So you're not going to answer questions from reporters? Okay, why don't we go through? I will continue to ask follow-up questions because that's my job as a journalist, but I will go through and ask these, and if you don't want to answer, you don't want to answer. So nearly every legislative...
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you, and I don't want this all on camera.
I don't want to have an unhappy experience with you either. I would love to...
Unfortunately, it is all on camera, Katie Porter.
Continue to ask these questions so that we can show our viewers what every candidate feels about every one of these issues that they care about. And redistricting is a massive issue. We're going to do an entire story just on the responses to that question. And I've asked everybody the same follow.
Yeesh. Oh, and then there's this one, yeah.
And the state could lose Get out of my fucking shot.
I wanted to tell you that that's actually incorrect. It's not that it's electric vehicles. It's that if we don't meet the commitments under the Paris Climate Accord.
Okay, it does. Okay, you also were in my shot before that. Stay out of my shot. Okay, I'm going to start again with electric vehicles saving us money. Perfect.
Phew. She's literally a fucking psychopath. Didn't she, like, kill her husband or something? Maybe not kill. Something? I don't know. She ate my son. Where does she stand on Israel? Maybe because she's running for a state office. There's not much here on that. Called for a ceasefire in December 2023, but blamed Hamas for shortages of food, clean water, fuel, and medicine over the years in Gaza. So just, I don't know. There's not a lot here to work off of, really. Can probably take a guess. Former LA mayor and opposing candidate Antonio Villaraigosa said the incident raised questions about Porter's ability to answer simple questions. Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so. All right. Her actual flaws are a lot worse than being a Zionist. I do think that we undervalue temperament and character quite a bit when it's actually like really fucking important. What happened to Swalwell? He dropped out. His ass is done. He's in the device right now. He became a nun. He's at a monastery. She called her ex-husband a slur and dumped boiling mashed potatoes on him. That was it. Allegedly. That's quite the graphic. Thank you, TMZ. Katie Porter allegedly called ex-husband fucking idiot, dumped hot mashed potatoes on him. Why waste good mashed potatoes, man? Both filed domestic violence restraining orders against each other after their divorce in 2013. Sheesh. On another occasion, Hoffman claims Porter went berserk over the way he was preparing mashed potatoes, and she snapped, "Can't you read the fucking instructions?" Hoffman said Porter then raised a ceramic bowl of steaming hot potatoes and dumped it on my head, burning my scalp. According to Hoffman, Porter also tossed toys, books, and other objects and refused to allow him to have a cell phone because she said he was too fucking dumb to operate it. Damn, real girl boss over here. Well, it's all allegedly, but it does track with how she behaves in public, so... She's that one image of Shinji throwing the bottle at Asuka. I love that image. I love it where they're both throwing the bottle at each other. I think that's goals. Fascist girl boss. Man, I don't want to, like, MRA post too much, but I do think it's worth pointing out that these are very serious allegations of domestic abuse. Do you think that she still would have been able to be a front-running candidate for governor if she was a man and this had been filed against her? Like extensive court documents on violent domestic abuse with specific details? I guess this is from October 10th, 2025, which is after the meltdown here with CBS. But that's only the article, right? Like, the information would have been from the restraining orders filed after their divorce in 2013. So this information was publicly accessible, you know? There we go. Rhythm Heaven minigame. Just day to day with her. Katie Porter and every journalist she ever talked to. People don't take abuse committed by women seriously because they don't believe women are capable of meaningful violence. Yeah, and it's, like, fucked up because she's, like, kind of scary. Like, I mean, obviously she's a blobby old woman, so you can take from that what you will, but the way that her staffer is behind her and she just screams, like, with no lead up, you know, it's pretty bad. It's pretty goddamn bad, you know? She does look a little bit like Tony Soprano. That's a 2021 Zoom interview with then Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm. She did that while interviewing a candidate. Holy shit. Not candidate, sorry. Administrative official. It's always so much worse off camera. Yeah, this is only like what we're only getting like the surface of it, you know? Was anyone still taking her seriously? She's running for governor! She was at the CA debate yesterday. It's crazy, man. It's like Swalwell just got out. I don't know. Maybe we should get rid of another person in the race. That chick cut a dude's dick off, threw it in a garbage disposal. That shit was laughed at by prominent female celebrities. Okay, hold on. That was fucked up, but we have to let that one go. That one has been like a shibboleth of MRA ideology for like a decade now. You know what I mean? Like that was a long time ago. We have to We have to find new examples. But you're not wrong. But we have to find new examples. It's kind of funny in a 9/11 kind of way. I mean, maybe a little bit, yeah. Does anyone else think the only reason people got mad at that was because it was women on The View? Like, what if it was a bunch of guys? You know what I mean? Would it be different then? Oh, the girl, that crazy bitch cut his dick off. Oh, you know. Did she throw it out the window like a girl? I don't know. All politicians have been accused of weird, abusive shit with their staff. Klobuchar was accused of throwing staplers at her staff. Yeah, we just don't, like, take it seriously when women do it. I don't know. Basket of deplorables. No, Thana, I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. Maybe I'm misinterested. Why is 9/11 so funny? Same reason Charlie Kirk's death is. People really like turning up the insincere performative mourning makes it funnier and funnier to make fun of because it's so taboo. Like 9/11 jokes probably weren't that funny right after 9/11 happened, would be my guess. I was kind of like a little kid back then, but yeah, I think back then people probably would have been like a little bit more sensitive about it, but now no one fucking cares. You know who does care? Democratic establishment centrists, because they keep fucking bringing it up with Hassan, you know? They're the ones pretending to care. Man found in forest fighting war that ended 30 years ago asked 25-year-old 9/11 jokes, and people are still losing their goddamn minds. Nuts, what the fuck? How long have you watched me? How could you possibly attribute that view to me? Are you being for real? What do you think of Steyer? I like Steyer. He's cool. All right. Click this, click that. Katie Porter abuse. Jesus Christ, why are you... Hold on. You're losing your mind. You're having a meltdown here, okay? If you are a politician and you are running, you need to have an answer to the question, how will you appeal to X group of people? It is literally not acceptable for you to say, I just don't care about appealing to this group of people. You literally can't do that. It doesn't matter how bad the group of people is. You know, this is why I'm not a politician, okay? My call for like a mass, like a Rwanda-esque culling of the rural America would not actually do well if I was running in fucking, you know, Minnesota 3, all right? What's up? I would love a coffee, yes. Here. Thank you. That rule does not apply to Republicans. Stop being hysterical. You sound like a woman. I'd love a coffee. What? I'm not talking to you. Quit get me in trouble, okay? Porter being mean to her staff is bad, and I support Steyer, but I want to focus on this notion where conservative politicians are allowed to be mean. Listen, it's not about what they're allowed to do, okay? It's not about what they're allowed to do. If you want to... Listen, in my opinion, I think that Democrats should have a more contemptuous answer for Republicans when asked this question. I think that Democrats, when asked, what are you going to do to appeal to Trump supporters? You should say something like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do to appeal to Trump voters, considering the fact that their main priorities seem to be suffering and pedophilia. But, you know... we'll see if we can't win them back with like lower grocery costs or something. You need to point out that you will make their lives better, because you will. Your goal as a politician is to make everyone's life better. You don't want to actually make Republicans' life worse. Keep in mind that disenfranchising Republicans, preventing them from taking the vote from them, would make their lives better, because then they wouldn't be governed by Republicans. Areas governed by Republicans are objectively worse than areas governed by Democrats. I don't like the Democrats, but they are better objectively than Republicans at governing and also at everything else, basically. So you still need to make a case, a positive case, for making their lives better. You can be as contemptuous as you want. The problem was that Porter was so uninterested in answering the question, she couldn't even come up with anything. She was contemptuous that she was being asked the question, not of the voters that she was directing her attention towards. That's the issue, you know? I'm okay with being contemptuous towards Republican voters, but you still have to remind them you're going to make their lives better. Like, even the most disgusting, pedophilic, you know, white supremacist neo-Nazi on Twitter, like, their life would be better if a Democrat was a president than a Republican. That's the difference between them and us, you know? As much as we hate them and they hate us, their leaders being put in power makes all of our lives worse. Our leaders being put in power makes all of our lives better, you know? It's a fundamental difference. They're the Joker, we're Batman. Yeah, exactly. That's how I would put it if I was running for the CA governor race, yeah. That is absolutely a slur, Diggy says. All right. Guys, guess what we're doing? I know you guys have been you've been sitting pretty for a while now. You've been like, politics? Surely that must be when Vosh sits at the computer for somewhere between 2 to 3 hours a day, reading news articles out loud at me and then getting mad at people when they disagree with him. And if you're for the most part, that is politics and nothing beyond that. However, every once in a while we must break the mold. We're talking to the one, the only Dylan Burns for a bit. So just give me a mo. Don't talk to people much these days. It's a special occasion. Though we are going to be fixing that. We're on the midterm run right now. We're on the midterm run. I have an embarrassing clarification that I'd like to add. For Dylan Burns has just said, "Hey, I'm actually busy. Can we reschedule for 30 minutes from now?" So let me we're going to take this intro, and the editors, they're going to move it 30 minutes forward. If you like it so much, you can push it 30 minutes. Can I have that coffee, please?
Say we respect women in this house.
We respect women in this house. Thank you. Psych. No. Here, 1 second. All good. We'll call in 30. Good luck. Just put the news in the back. Well, you're going to have to wait 30 minutes then. RFK Jr. doing math. Fuck. Did you guys hear that? The breathing sounds from him? Did you guys hear that? From RFK Jr. during that hearing? That shit was crazy. I couldn't believe it, man. Hold on. I found the clip. Burn victim noises? Yeah, it's like mean, but it's...
You have done among the many that you described in your testimony. In that context, in your testimony, you identified nutrition as a bedrock of health and one of the primary levers for treating and preventing chronic disease. You also emphasize that it's imperative for our nation's healthcare providers to be equipped to incorporate nutrition into patient care. Securing commitments from more than 50 medical schools to...
When students 100 years from now see clips like this and then they're told this guy was leading the Health and Human Services Department, people are going to lose their mind. It's going to be like a joke. I have no idea how the fuck people are going to explain this era of history. This like late stage Roman Empire, this decline. I have no idea how people are going to do it.
Provide at least 40 hours of nutrition education is
on par with Nero making his horse a senator. Genuine, like that. It actually is. That does feel like where we're at. Yeah, you know. That was Caligula. Caligula. Okay, so yeah, you're right. You're right. That was Caligula. It does feel like that. Genuinely.
An incredible start. I don't think it was very long ago that there was probably very little nutrition taught in medical school. And now we are encouraging that to be a focal point. How does HHS plan to build on this progress by securing additional commitments from medical schools and expanding nutrition education into other key areas such as residency training, medical licensing, and continuing medical education?
Thank you very much, Chairman.
It just keeps going.
I was reminded when the president was speaking of a conversation that I had yesterday with one of the Democratic senators who was questioning me during a hearing, and she was ridiculing President Trump for his math, and she was saying it's mathematically impossible to have a drug drop by 600% cost, which he had claimed. And I said, well, if the drug was $100 and it raised the price to $600, that would be a 600% rise. Well, if it drops from 600 to 100, that's a 600% savings.
How is he related to the Kennedys? Well, it's in a way, it's like a perfect reflection of the duality of nepotism, right? The thing that made the early Kennedys impressive was that back then, wealth and power was to an extent something you had to earn. Not to suggest that corruption and impropriety wasn't common back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, but more like the elite used to be elite. And it is true, right? Generally speaking, back in the day, if you went to Ivy or Harvard, or you had like an elite family or whatever, you were descendant from the fucking Rockefellers or the Rothschilds or, you know, empire magnate barons, politicians. A lot of these people were, I mean, they were treated like little aristocrats, right? Like old European royalty, you know? You give them their tutorship and you teach them how to play the violin when they're young and so on and so forth. And like, I mean, Kennedy was subject to some aggressive pressure when he was young. Kennedy and his older brother, they were both subject to like a lot of really fucked up, like you are going to be the president, okay? His older brother, then he died in the war, like really aggressive stuff. And the problem, I think, is that back then there was some kind of incentive structure for excellence in power. And if you weren't excellent, many times people around you would take you down. And one of the symptoms of old dying empires is that the incentive structures within leadership no longer weed out the weak. It sounds stupid and a little bit Machiavellian, but it's true, right? Like it's you can take it, I guess, like was Julius Caesar an authoritarian? Yeah, absolutely, and bad in many respects. Was he competent? Yes, in many respects he was. The decline of the Roman Empire, as broad of a subject as it is, you know, you do see a tendency, I think, in the long run towards like, well, what correlated with the decline, you know? For the most part, I think, and it was a million things, but one of the big elements was just there stopped being these intense internal pressures towards excellence within the within leadership positions. Aristocracies work the same thing. You need internal pressure, because if you don't have it, eventually you grow weak and you're challenged from the outside. More like the fall of the Roman Republic. But you're right. I'm overreaching perhaps a little bit here. But it is a tendency. It is a real pattern. And yeah, right now there is literally no incentive to excellence. I would say that on average, the people in Trump's cabinet are stupider than the average person because they have been subjected to the sort of conceptual head bludgeoning of being ultra wealthy and privileged from day one. There is no pressure on them to be good. They don't care about studying. They don't care about the truth. They don't care about learning. They're bored by the concept of self-improvement. They are given everything they want at all times. There's no pressure. They never wake up and think, I am going to take advantage of my incredible access to these resources and I'm going to make myself excellent. You know, they never do. They do not. The best way to describe it is to look at Charlemagne's empire, what happened with his kids. You can do this with so many different empires, man. Even like Genghis Khan's kids or whatever. You have at some point a foundry, right? Like a crucible of pressure, external and internal, that makes a leader excellent, right? You have the great men, Genghis Khan, Napoleon, Alexander the Great. Whatever, you can take any one of them, right? And usually they have this big ascendancy and things tend to fall apart after they die or disempowered because they often give power, they give leadership positions to people through patronage, loyalty, favoritism, or, heritage. And these people have not been subject to the same pressures, so they're not as competent, they're not as quick-witted, they're often very greedy and you know, well, I mean, Napoleon and so on were very greedy people. I guess more like myopically greedy. They don't understand their limits very well. They don't realize how much work it took to bring them to the point they're at right now. Do you think Trump has any idea the level of entitlement, like how far up he stands and how little he deserves it? I don't think he does. It's the nature of failing empires to Epsteinize. Yeah, I think I agree with that. Though I would I think like Epstein himself was much smarter than like everyone we're looking at right now, you know. In prior eras, someone like Barron Trump would be speaking like 10 languages, and he would have books and books of philosophical and scientific writings, but instead he's just a dumb chud. Yeah, I mean, there is an element of truth to that. I think that, and this is and you know, pardon a fella who's been playing a little bit of MGS2 lately, but in a way, it kind of speaks to democracy being a pageantry that legitimizes inequality in power through civility and legal norms, rather than being a system that actually incentivizes meritocratic rises to power, you know? Because if you had an aristocracy this decaying and corrupt, well, I'm not suggesting anyone engage in illegal or unethical behavior, but I don't think it would last very long. I think that a noble court of this character would collapse or be collapsed very quickly. We all agree? Can we agree that if you took like France 15th century and the nobility, the court of nobility was made up of people like this exclusively, that it would take like no time at all before scheming viziers, advisors, first sons, you know, daughters maybe, before they would be like, or an external empire would just fucking, and it would just fall apart like this, you know? Ottoman Empire was like that for a few hundred years, though. I genuinely don't think that there are many historical empires that are as bad as this one in terms of how much the elite have decayed. I think that if at any point the Ottoman Empire was led entirely by people this stupid and myopic, it would have collapsed almost immediately. I think that in retrospect, we look back at their leadership and we go, oh, they were so dumb and corrupt, because usually the real decision-making was happening at an advisor level, you know? Like you have like an emperor or whatever. Just think, how quickly would Rome have fallen if Trump was emperor and his cabinet were the senators? Like, think about this. Think about all the stuff that Trump has done, all the stuff he's said, all the decisions that he's made. Think about it in a world where he's no longer protected by global hegemony and the dollar being the global reserve currency and all of the work that previous administrations have done to cement the power of the presidency. Imagine if he was just the emperor. It'd be like a day. I genuinely think it would be like a day, or he would have been like backstabbed almost immediately, you know? Yeah, we're kind of glorifying how things worked in the ancient past. No. It's not that things used to be good. It's not even that things now are worse than they used to be. It's that there is such a removal of internal and external pressure on the U.S. presidency specifically, that we are so powerful and so privileged that you can be unfathomably retarded. And everyone around you can be unfathomably retarded. But America is so strong, like as an institution, at least for now, that you can just float on that. Kind of speaks to the resilience of our system. No, that's exactly the point I made. There are no incentives. There are no pressures. It's just inertia, man. It is true, the fact, yeah, we don't have snap elections or votes of no confidence, so we're even more insulated, I think, in a lot of cases than other Western democracies. I just think that, like, a lot of the stuff that Trump has done as president with regards to his great edicts on tariffs or global conflict, I think that actually would have clapped the empire in a day. Like, it would have taken no time at all. The difference is Trump now can enact a tariff everyone policy, and it gets smoothed over by a system that involves the individual decision-making of millions of people who work it over and try to, like, adjust and compensate, and you have the incredible productivity and efficiency of a post-industrial world and a very streamlined global trade process trying to work it out and make it function in spite. But if you did that move back in the day when, like, one bad decision on grain management led to mass starvation, I think you would just, like, end the republic in no time. You get me? A fuck up like the Strait of Hormuz, like bombing Iran or attacking Venezuela or anything like that, if done by someone who wasn't insulated by the presidency, it would just... It's a very safe country. Oh, anyway, the reason I got into all this right now is because this is RFK Jr. explaining Trump's girl math.
President Trump and the Republicans slashed healthcare for millions of families. The president pitched his Trump RX website as the answer for Americans who are worried about healthcare costs. He claims that Trump RX has reduced prices by as much as 600%. 600%, which I think means companies should be paying you to take their drugs. But let's do some real math here. Take one drug, Protonix, a 30-day supply of this heartburn medication, costs $200 on Trump RX. But there is an identical generic version of this pill called pantoprazole. Secretary Kennedy, do you know how much it costs for a 30-day supply of that drug at Costco?
But I would say this, Senator.
Do you know what it costs?
President Trump has a different way of calculating. If there's two ways of calculating percentage. If you have a $600 drug and you reduce it to 10, that's a 600% reduction.
That you know I only have 5 minutes. Do you know what the drug costs at Costco?
I do not.
The drug is $16 at Costco. Trump RX charges
I think the moment that a Roman senator said, you know, Emperor Trump has a different kind of math, I think that, like, solidly about 10,000 square miles of the empire would have just collapsed into revolt instantly. Like, it just somehow they would a reverberation of psychic incompetence would envelop the globe, and like a quarter of the empire would just catch on fire.
$200 for Protonix, and Costco charges $16. Let's do another one.
The moment the Praetorian Guard comes to disappear you. Yeah, that's the fucked up thing, man. We don't even have Praetorian Guards anymore.
And the president used that mathematical device to illustrate the magnitude of the theft that has been happening against our country and our people, as he said. I was reminded when the president was...
To be fair, we're much softer than our ancestors. If you take a structural functionalist perspective and you assume that the safety that Trump gets to enjoy despite his incredible incompetence, you understand it as a deliberate product of the system, one might get very cynical about democracy, at least liberal democracy, because it does kind of seem like, especially over the past 50 years, and especially after the end of the Cold War, that many of these civil norms and procedures and institutions are working against us, in the sense that we have made politics, which is a very dangerous game. I mean, you know, many millions of people live or die every day based on political decisions. We have made it so, we've neutered it. We have made it so banal and placid and, like, enforced through procedural norms. We forget that, like, for all of human history, people have fought and killed and died over whether or not their leader is competent enough to lead the country. Now we don't. Now we're all safe. And look where it got us. I feel like there has to be some kind of incentive structure here for people in power. You know? It's not good. It's not just America either. I mean, it feels like the entire West, people are... remember when we were looking at in the beginning of the war with Iran, we were looking at like Iranian officials and all of them have like PhDs, and then every American congressman is like a used car salesman with an IQ of 82 and a Christian evangelical. And then you look at like the foreign minister from Iran and he's like, you know, he's like fucking 16 treatises that he's written this year or something. Likewise with China, you know, in the Chinese Communist Party, they do have a much higher standard of educational attainment they demand of their members than we do. Elections were supposed to be the incentive, but look how that turns out. Yeah, it turns out that doesn't really work if the average voter is a fucking idiot. Remember that one statement from the yeah. What was the one thing? The blank, which I assume Americans have read. No. It was fuck. Wasn't an Iranian official made a Jane Austen reference, and there was a clip of a BBC reporter not getting it? Am I misremembering that? Yeah, well, I don't know. Alexis de Tocqueville. You're correct. That was it. That sounds right. Yeah. All right. Hold on. We got 10 minutes till we're talking to Dylan properly this time. RFK Jr. sounds like a zombie / the empire is dying. Something type shit. Here. From TrueAnon, only pulling from the best sources. Oh, here's the Jane Austen reference. Yeah.
It's been quite interesting to look at the, I think, unexpected social media game of Iran recently. And the Iranian ambassador to Pakistan has posted on social media to say, it's a Pride and Prejudice joke, it's a truth universally acknowledged that a single country in possession of a large civilization will not negotiate under threat and force. This is a substantial Islamic and theological principle I wish the US would have perceived. So it's a kind of play on Jane Austen.
I actually still don't quite get why it's a play on Jane Austen, but I think it's quite convincing. It's a legitimate point.
Yeah, it's the opening line of Pride and Prejudice, a truth universally acknowledged. That's very fair. But they've had these kind of Lego memes on social media as well, where they've been getting almost like kind of, I mean, it's not official Iran accounts, but like outriders to post Lego memes mocking Donald Trump.
Which I've seen some of those, and obviously everyone told me it was a Pride and Prejudice joke this morning. I didn't know. But I thought it was still quite compelling, which I guess harks back to Jane Austen was pretty good at what she did.
I've never read Pride and Prejudice. I did, however, order The Portrait of Dorian Gray because it came up on stream the other day and I realized that I never read it. And it's behind me right now, so, you know, hopefully we'll get to that. Want to get through some of the classics, you know? How's Dracula going? I haven't started it yet, I'm sorry. I've been wanting to, but it's been taking all of my energy to work on my sleep health. And so far, that's been going well. So I am happy, I think, overall with the sort of general arc of my, my self-improvement. Have you read any Oscar Wilde? I don't think. Maybe in school? I don't know. Did you get the uncensored version of Dorian Gray? Uncensored? I got it from the Penguin, from the Classics publisher. I don't know. I assume so? All right. There are two versions. Oscar Wilde had to self-censor the second one due to homo stuff. Oh, okay. Well, I got the Classics version, okay? I don't know. This definitive edition includes a selection of contemporary reviews condemning the novel's immorality. It doesn't say it's uncensored. So, sorry, I got the cucked version. Oof. It's only like 500 words-ish. I'll look it up online. Even SAT reading questions have been dumbed down. This is a real SAT question. The following text is from David Barclay Moore's 2022 novel, Holler of the Fireflies. The narrator has just arrived at summer camp, which is far away from his home. This place was different than I thought it would be. I'd never been somewhere like this before. I did feel scared, but also excited. According to the text, how does the narrator feel about being at summer camp? This can't be a real SAT question. This has to be a joke. They can't possibly... I genuinely think this has to be fake. There's no fucking way that's real. I don't know if I trust this account. If schools and universities refuse to teach us great books of the West... Yeah, the account aside, I can't believe this. I just don't believe this. We may actually be cooked if this is real. Don't let Iran see this, okay? Do not let Iran see this. They're going to fuck us up in the Persian Gulf. Answer the question instead of deflecting. ChatGPT. Grok. What the fuck is this? Okay. Met a doctoral student who forgot how to spell basic English words because he relies too much on Grammarly and AI. That's pretty grim, I think. Is it C? Can you guys fucking stop? You're actually embarrassing me. Autocorrect should not exist. Autocorrect should exist for phones. I don't really know about it. Like, it shouldn't exist for your PC. I mean, my phone has an autocorrect. I'm not really good at typing with my thumbs. Breaking. The U.S. has burned through so many munitions in Iran that Trump admin officials increasingly assess that the U.S. could not fully defend Taiwan from a Chinese invasion if it occurred in the near term. I'm actually going to have to change my... Like, I'm now against us intervening if China invades Taiwan, not because I think it's bad for us to intervene, but because I think we'd lose. I'm not joking. Like, I morally think that we should defend Taiwan. I think that we would lose if we did it right now, which would potentially be much bloodier than if China just overwhelmed Taiwan. We literally pulled missile defense systems from Southeast Asia to supplement our attacks on Iran. We should try, though? No? No, because if we tried and failed, we could potentially cost a lot more civilians their lives. If China just overwhelmed Taiwan, that'd be one thing, but a prolonged, like, naval war around Taiwan could potentially be a lot worse, you know? Isn't this literally the same logic for Ukraine? But I don't think the United States should invade Russia or directly position themselves in Ukraine. we have the situation with Taiwan and with Ukraine is different. We can defend Ukraine by giving them weapons, which we have been. Well, not recently, but which we did. Which I support, obviously. Are you worried about our vibe-coded future? Google says 75% of the companies do codes AI generated. Oh, don't worry, I know. I can feel it every time I use a new version of any software from any major. Like every time a new Windows update comes out, and then all the fucking posts online about security breaches and how non-functional everything is. I meant more so it'd be less violent if Russia just overwhelmed them. Potentially, yeah, but like that doesn't really work in the long run, though. I guess what I should say is if Russia was guaranteed to be able to take Ukraine in relatively short order, it might be better to have let them, or it might have been better to let them. Not because it's good that they invaded Ukraine, but because if that's a losing fight, it might be worse in a utilitarian sense to prolong it than it would be to allow like an easy win. Though you'd have like big problems down the line because then a very aggressive Russia would be right up against Poland or whatever. Thankfully, that's just not the case. Of course, Russia invading Ukraine and China invading Taiwan are two very fucking different situations. So, yeah. Dylan's coming to your house right now. Oh, yeah, speaking of, hold on. Yeah, you wouldn't want to embolden Russia, but like if there's nothing you can do. The problem with the strategy is the invaders usually just emboldened to invade the next one. No, I know that. I mean, I know that. It's just like if we can't do anything, we can't do anything, you know? My geopolitical positions are not motivated by like suicidality and you know, principles above all else. If our participation would make things worse, then that's bad. Our participation in Ukraine has made things better, though. So, you know. I mean, certainly I think that Ukraine would agree that the fact that we have provided them weapons, which we should have provided many more, it has been, you know, better. It's better that this happened than if they had just gotten invaded without any support from the West. But with Taiwan, man, like right now, sheesh. Yeah, we already used all 5 of our missiles in Iran. Oh, here we go. If you can get away with it, Natsuthi. Dude, my back has been killing me lately. I don't know why. I do my stretches. I think I tweaked my like lower right back at some point. Try not to worsen it when I sleep. Oh, hey, Dylan.
Hello, how you doing?
Doing okay, just old people things. What are you? You're like 24?
I turned 25 this year.
20? Nice. Okay, yeah, you'll get there. You'll get there. Oh, here, let me.
Yeah, I started doing this when I was 18, Vosh, to make you feel older.
That's
18.
Fucking, that's crazy. Genuinely, that is crazy. And I remember it. I remember it too. I remember you in my chat, and you said you were going to single-handedly, you know, take Moscow, and I said, I don't know about that, but now here you are, in Moscow.
Yeah, I'm underground right now. I'm beneath the Kremlin, actively preparing the big moment, the big strike. Gonna do what I've been planning to do. Jackson Hinkle shouldn't have let me put that tracker on him, and I know exactly where he is now.
Yeah, you will succeed where Prigozhin failed. And God bless. You know, we all need that break. Here, one sec. Let me get you popped up on my screen. It's been a while since I've had someone on. I've kind of forgotten how all the buttons work, if I'm being honest with you. I'll figure it out though. How you doing? Seriously. I mean, Jesus Christ, you've been up to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I've been busy. I've been busy over the last, I mean, ever since the war started, I've been extremely busy, but I've got like 4 jobs right now that I'm like trying to like juggle with each other in order to just get stuff done. I'm trying to do whatever I can in between of that work. A project I got involved in I'm really passionate about is I'm doing a documentary with the Healthy Homes Initiative in Maryland about how landlords are paying off housing inspectors in order to get falsified reports so they don't have to repair the lead paint that are poisoning children. And there was already a convicted case of a fellow who got 14,000 homes falsely inspected and, you know, was taking bribes that is connected with children really getting poisoned, being affected for the rest of their lives. And there's legislation coming up about it on May 5th in Baltimore for anybody who lives in that area. And I want to release this documentary right before it because I want to present that despite, you know, all the achievements to fight lead, like it's still a real issue, and derelict landlords are going to derelict landlord, you know?
There are so many, not for Maryland specifically, but there are so many accounts that I've seen of people doing like impromptu housing inspections in Arizona because they're really bad with the housing code over there. They're just erecting a bunch of McMansions on the cheap, you know, and they go like door to door and they're like, oh, look at this, the whole wall's detached. Yep, they like kick the foundation, the whole house shutters, you know. Nasty stuff. We've really, I think,
kid jumps like lead paint chips fall like snow.
Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, we built in like winter room. You slam the wall and asbestos sprinkles down on you. No, it's
you don't have to do any Christmas decorating.
Nasty stuff. Thank you. I'd like to take a look at that. I don't really know much about the housing situation in Maryland. I guess it's probably bad like it is everywhere else.
It depends on which county you're in. I'm from gorgeous Prince George's, born and raised. But in Baltimore, they banned Baltimore, they banned lead in Baltimore in the 1950s. Like in the year, like 1949, it got banned by the Maryland state legislature. And in 1950, it was banned in Baltimore, ahead of most of the country, because it was only banned in about like 1973, 74 federally. So it should be something you'd think with that much time, it wouldn't be an issue. But Baltimore is in his American terms, a historic city. It's one of the, you know, part of the original 13 states, and Baltimore's been around for a while. I mean, you read about the Civil War, like the draft riots in Baltimore. You go back to the American Revolution, you can see its involvement there. But that means lead has had a lot of time to be used in housing, and it is cheaper to just let it sit and do some minor repairs than it is to like actually dig out the walls, to do a whole new foundation. So there is still a problem with a bunch of houses still having lead. And the real issue is the lead paint chips and the dereliction, because once that happens, the dust and the lead paint, that is what poisons kids.
Yeah,
that's what takes away their educational advantages. That's what makes them more predisposition to violence. I mean, it has so many detrimental effects.
Right, the Gen X effect. It wasn't Baltimore. I think it was Chicago, maybe Philadelphia. It was one of the old cities, you know, where I was reading an article on how a bunch of their sewer systems, they're not even mapped out because they're so old that they haven't even bought. It's, you know, 150, 180 years old. So there's just an underlying additional lead sewage system where, as far as we know, water leaches out of the mainline sewer system and back into it. You know, it gets like lead in it, and nobody even knows where these points are. Like, it's basically just guesswork. And to actually uproot it and get rid of all that old lead sewage piping, it would be, I mean, billions and billions of dollars for a big city like Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, for a city like Baltimore, you're talking about, I mean, that's just one infrastructure problem that Baltimore has, right? Baltimore's got a bunch of other infrastructure problems, and it's not exactly the favorite city of the United States president right now. So trying to get federal funding and assistance in these types of initiatives is extremely difficult. I mean, in Maryland, we've had confrontations where we've asked for FEMA funding after some particularly nasty floods, because Maryland isn't really flood country. It's not something that's prepared for flooding. And so when there is a flood, it can be, you know, it can do some damage. And the government just barely even responded. They just said no. They just told us to basically buzz off. And it's just, the partisan politics of it is complicated on one level. And then there's just the general dereliction of, oh, we'll just wait till next session, or, you know, it'd be so expensive, or, you know, what would this mean for all these mom and pop landlords, or what, XYZ. And so there's just this talking people themselves down, all these legislators and just individual, like, I guess you could say stakeholders, talking themselves down from action. And in the meantime, like, children are still being poisoned when most people think that the lead crisis is over.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just one of those things where it feels like you're never going to get the political will necessary to motivate people to be willing to spend enough of their tax dollars to fix it. Like, you're just going to be dealing with some incrementally less bad version of the crumbling infrastructure year after year, because no generation of Americans would be like, no, we're okay with diverting 30% of the municipal budget towards fixing this, even though, like, more than that gets spent on police every year. You know, like, there's no political will for it.
The legislation that's up for the 5th isn't, hey, let's replace all the lead paint in the city immediately. It is, how about the inspectors that are taking bribes for the lead paint chips that are falling on the floor?
But that's an easy win. Yeah, that's...
How about we strengthen it so it's harder for those people to get away with it? By the way, the person who, I will just say, they poison kids. By you not doing your job in that situation, you are poisoning children. That's how it should be treated. It's not just like a paperwork, white-collar crime if it's actually damaging the health of children. They got 2 years suspension for that. So what deterrent effects is there in place? And so right now, I'm just trying to think about these criminals poisoning children. And the main standard is right now, it's like, how about the lead paint walls? We use paint, the better lead paint, to like cover it up so it doesn't fall as much. And that's like the standard we're at now. And I'd like to get away from that conversation, but I mean, we got to stop the criminals before we can even have that conversation.
No, it's social murder. It's crazy that they can't be like arrested for that. You know, if you're an engineer and you stamp on a bridge, and the designs that you're stamping, that you're verifying, are you know, dangerous or ineffective, or you're aware of the fact that it's being constructed ineffectively, that it could be a danger to people in the future, you can be arrested for that. It's crazy that that standard of culpability isn't applied like down the line to everyone whose job is similar, because obviously, like a housing inspector or any kind of infrastructural inspection, it's literally the same thing. You are using your expertise to sign off on a project. If you're knowingly like taking bribes, you're just signing people to their death. You know, you should be on the hook for that.
I don't understand how we can give somebody like 15 to 20 years for taking $50 out of a cash register, but this guy poisoned children and he got 2 months, like 2 years suspended sentence. He's not going to stay a day in jail. He's not going to stay a day in prison. And what deterrent effect does that have? If I was a cynical inspector, I would look at that and say, I'd take that bargain. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollar bribes for the small chance I'll get a 2-year suspended sentence. I mean, like, I am not a huge advocate of mandatory minimums, but it was hearing that suspended sentence that made me think, like, well, I don't know. Maybe we should have mandatory minimums for white collar crimes. Maybe we should actually switch where the mandatory minimums were. I had to talk myself back from it. I was radicalizing myself in real time.
No, it's genuinely fucking crazy, and it's only been getting worse, I feel. I think that there's this weird horseshoe curve where, like, 150 years ago, graft and corruption and embezzlement and so on were incredibly common, right? Like, you know, I don't know, Wild West days of civil infrastructure and investment. And then as we got more wise to it and we started to invest in the idea of a collective civic, you know, infrastructural project, you build out these cities. It's not just a bunch of homesteaders out on roads in the middle of nowhere. You want to make this accessible to everyone. We started to push back against it and tamp down, and we built, I don't know, something akin to a civilization. And now it's just ramping up again because the law is so complicated. There are so many caveats and little pockmarks that people can take advantage of. I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty grim. But if nothing else, I mean, hopefully people can get up for, like, taking down obvious corruption, bribery, and that sort of stuff.
Also, his name was Rodney Brian Barkley, you rat fuck. He's going to be walking on the streets free. I just want to put that out there. You know, let poison children out on the streets.
Do you have his address as well on hand?
Okay, 94 set. No, I can't do that.
Baltimore City man pleads guilty to falsifying lead paint certificates. Is 2 years suspension?
2 years suspended sentence.
Suspended sentence, yes.
So he's not, that means he doesn't spend any time in prison. He's not gonna, like, see a jail cell.
Do we know how much he was bribed? Do we know how much he got for that?
I can't tell you off the back of my head, but I can tell you that, like, this guy, they had to redo, like, or they're gonna have to redo 1,400 homes inspections. So, I mean, that's a lot. You have to imagine there was some money that went with that.
Fucking crazy, man. That's so many lives potentially ruined.
Well, no, not potentially. the case as we know it, the children that were in those homes that he inspected are confirmed since then to have had elevated lead levels in their blood. So we know for sure that kids did get lead in their system that will affect their health, that will be with them till the day they die, and this guy gets 2 years suspended sentence.
They should let those kids fuck him up.
I mean, you know, I'm on the internet and I'm live.
It's just, how old are they? How many babies does it take to take down one? I got to see a picture of this guy. Let me see how fit he looks.
I looked everywhere for a picture. I looked very, very hard. I couldn't find anything.
That itself is incredibly fucked. Like, if a kid steals a candy bar from a 7-Eleven, you get his face on every goddamn local paper. But this guy just, you know, fucking over 1,000 homes, stamp your lead in it, and we don't even get to know what he looks like. That guy should have to register like a fucking sex offender. You know, go door to door and let everyone know your house may have lead because of me. Sorry.
Or hey, or the people that, you know, you might be living next to the guy that poisoned your child. You don't know.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm reading an article on it now from the banner.com. Yeah, judge opts for no jail time. Jeez, fuck. The judicial bias towards white collar criminals, man, it's fucking crazy. It makes me mad. Okay. Less enraging topic. Hope you don't mind the pivot. How's the war going?
You know, the war is going on. It's gone on 5 years now. So I've been doing this for nearly half a decade, and it's kind of weird to think of it in that sense. But there's a lot of, if we're just talking about the balance, right, and not just like the humanity of it. For the balance, right now, the Russians are having a pretty hard time advancing. They are advancing in areas, but they're advancing at a much slower rate than they did in 2025. And the rate of advance around places like Konstantinivka are not to the standards that the Russian army would want it to be. They want to like push and try to take the rest of the Donetsk region probably sometime this year. They're pushing towards those goals. I would like to see if they could even take Konstantinivka by the end of this year. I've been filming in the Konstantinivka direction since 2022. I'm filming a documentary there from like a year on that front, on that axis with the different teams. I was at, and if anybody's following the battle, I was at the lake to the direct south of Konstantinivka. That's where I was filming with you know, I don't know if I should say this in this connection, but it's Lubert, which is which is a derivative of Azov. For all those people at home who know of those fantastic people.
Hey, they've been
this is a friendly
okay?
environment. There's a friendly, yeah. I was with Woke Azov, just to be clear for everybody at home. I was with Woksov, but the fighting over there is extremely vicious, extremely slow, and it is not at a rate of advance that is beneficial to the Russian army. The Russian army is hoping that at a certain point, the Ukrainian manpower shortage will lead to frontline collapse along the entire front. The frontline strategy for the Russian army has been for a while now, and is very clear. If we push everywhere, somewhere will break. They can try to push in the direction of, you know, Kramatorsk and Sloviansk to take these cities to the best of their ability. But at the end of the day, their general philosophy across the entire front line of advance is waiting for that eventual Ukrainian collapse, which has yet to manifest in any reasonable way.
You're going to have to slow it down with the pronunciations a little bit. Our brains are cooked from the other conflict down in the Gulf. You know, we've been asking Grok how close we are to running out of oil for the past month and a half. So, all right, I've got the live UA. I've got the live UA map up. All right. So, in the cursory time I've spent, you know, recently looking at the development of this conflict, it seems like, and pardon me for my optimism if it's unfounded. I'd like you to correct me. It seems like Russia has failed to manifest the gains that they're looking for and has basically run out of ways to do it, perhaps absent another big mobilization, which Putin doesn't want to do because it would make people very angry. Like, we know they get North Korean assistance. It doesn't move the needle, you know? They're out of equipment, at least they're out of novel equipment, and it's basically just drone pot shotting and trench warfare right now. I don't know, like, what could move the needle in either direction at this point, you know?
There's a few things. I don't think that the general Russian infiltration strategy is going to move the needle. I think it's a way to show the government that they're advancing towards objectives while keeping the pressure on the Ukrainians. So I don't think that there's going to be any point where they put out like a big new money request, like, okay, you can have a free home from the occupied territories, which they actually are starting to talk about. You know, they're putting through programs for soldiers to get the homes that they conquer in occupied territories. But there, at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to be it. What will probably end up being it is whichever economy ends up buckling first, or who cannot scrape enough people together to hold that line if the collapse was to come. There's a few, as in frontline collapse. I think it'll probably be the former, and there's a few reasons for this. Number one, the Ukrainians have difficulty every year meeting their budget requirements. This is not a question of, oh, hey, right now the Ukrainians are $19.6 billion, even after the European aid package, short of their funds for defense for the year, right? Oh my gosh. But that question was happening every single year for the Ukrainians, where they have to find some way to make the budget, and they do, and they make cuts everywhere else. And that's something they've had to scrape together. The one threat that is something that really concerns me is their inability to knock out long-range Russian ballistic missiles if the American supply diminishes to a point where they can continue to undermine the Ukrainian defense industry, which has allowed them to have the manpower shortage and still hold the front line. Because when you try to move on the front line, drones see everything. And within 30 seconds to a minute of a drone seeing you, there's a drone coming to your position with an RPG or something to come kill your ass. Right?
Yeah, I don't understand how war even functions at this level. It's because like the war 5 years ago and war today are two completely different things. We know this conflict has basically set the standard for what like modern relative peer conflict looks like, at least when you don't have $1 trillion to blow, which is just you pump out as many drones as you can. And I don't know, you trade FMV videos of your conscripts looking mournfully at the ground in the last 20 seconds they have before a drone hits them in the head and blows up. It's like, I guess I don't even like, I don't know how much people in chat. Wait, hold on 1 second. You forgive me for the rest of my audience. Everyone, you all know about the optic fiber like blanket coating the whole eastern Ukraine now, right? Is this whole they assist the drones back and forth. I don't even know how the fuck you get across that. Or past that. I don't know how you rebuild through this. I guess I just don't really understand how war works. In my mind, when I think of like the Russians are moving west, I think of it in a very World War II sense. You might have trenches, okay, you've got the artillery, you've got the tanks, but like eventually the men in the uniforms make it to a town, and then they, I don't know, they sit in the church and have a drink, then they move on. But it doesn't work that way anymore, right? Like it's just totally different.
I remember at the start of filming my Pokrovsk documentary, it was like the end of 2024 or something. It was sometime, yeah, it was near the end of 2024. No, I actually started filming the year before. It was well over a year filming on the Pokrovsk documentary, but a year and a half and like, that didn't really ring it as well. And I remember talking to this guy, and he says, the Russians want to take Pokrovsk by the end of this year. I don't think they will, but they're really trying. And it would be another year and 2 months before the Russians would take it. And by the time they took it, the entire Pokrovsk countryside was demolished. All of the city was scarred by war. Like buildings were literally like caved in half, as if like a giant pillar had come out of the earth and just sunk. Like there were sinkholes in the middle of buildings almost to just make these columns of just not buildings anymore, just destroyed rubble as if they were like jagged teeth sticking out of the ground. And to get to that point, there is no like church to go have a drink in. You can go have like a drink in like in a basement that isn't caved out. You can go like do that, but if you're a Russian soldier and you're in Pokrovsk right now, your life is at risk. Your life is at risk from drones patrolling the area, and so you're not just gonna walk on the street peacefully. If you're smart, you're gonna be running building to building still at this point. So yeah, they have the city, but there was no victorious capture, and by the time they got there, this strategic value of Pokrovsk as a logistical hub had been destroyed. The train rails were destroyed. Any train infrastructure was destroyed. All the buildings were fucking shot to shit. And so this grinding advancement of the war kind of destroys not only the manpower pools that the Russians advance with due to these drone swarms and the infiltration tactics they try to use, because they can't gather up like they used to. What it used to be back in World War II was like, okay, you have 300 men together, charge! And that's like how it would work. If you do that today, you will die before you even gather.
So
you'll
I don't
be
even
on the road to
understand.
the position, and you'll be blown up, and all your guys will be killed. There was a huge scandal recently in a unit called Scala. I love being here because I go home and I hear like Zelensky's mansion bullshit, like problems, and then I hear like the real Ukrainian problems. Syrskyi, who's the head of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, his favorite unit is Scala. And it's like this aggressive assault unit. And some people question exactly how they're always using the assaults. But there was this video they recorded where they all gathered together, like 200 of them, to show their strength, show off the new vehicles, you know, Ukrainian propaganda, woohoo. And all the replies are like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you all gathered together? A missile's gonna kill you all. Drones are everywhere. What are you doing? And so there's like even a public conscious like acceptance that you can't gather armies, which has led the Russians to engage in these infiltration tactics that lead to these confusing interactions with Westerners where they see one random Russian walking through a field, getting torn apart by a drone, and everybody's like, oh, that's so sad. Why was he? You shouldn't be alone when you die. It's very sad that this man paid accepted a contract to come here. But it's the only thing
you can do.
If you gather up more, then all of the drones will see it. You'll get a bunch of artillery fire and drone fire in your position, and maybe you'll gain something, but the loss will be so significant that in many instances, these armored assaults have to be done so sneakily. Like the attack into Kursk, like people, when they were not like crossing the border, the soldiers were like in civilian clothes, like just doing fuck all, just like hanging out in the countryside because if they gathered up in uniform with their tanks and shit, they just all get annihilated. So they had to like blend in to the countryside in order to make the Kursk incursion look like, you know, nothing was really going on besides some psyoping. And so at this point, I think the biggest change to war is, of course, there's the drones, but it's the transparency. It's the fact that if you do anything in a large enough amount anywhere, you will be seen either by drones or by satellites.
So it seems like the outcome of all of this then is that war, as we understand it traditionally, is basically impossible. It's almost like I don't know what the right word, like a hyper democratization of warfare, where you no longer have these big top level moves that dictate the flow of battle. You don't have like big shifts or these big like the kind of thing that would make the headliner on a newspaper. It's just this grinding bullshit where you just trade the production of drone factories on both sides. All the top level strategy is like the distribution of resources in a strategic sense, but like on a tactical level, you don't really get big armored advances. You can't, because like you'll just get cut up. It's like it's a meat grind. It's like a blender. There's just a long blender line in Ukraine where no matter how much money or power or equipment you have, the moment you enter it, your life can be ended for like a $500 drone. Like that's what your life is worth there. And I don't really know how this ends. Even if Ukraine took back everything, I mean all of it, right? If Russia remained belligerent, even a country like Russia could afford to just throw drones over the border forever, right? They could just I don't know how this ends.
Risk. This is a real risk. I can tell you how the only way I see it ending, and then I can talk about the risk you just identified with like the idea of like the ever war, where every few days the Russians will throw a few drones over so nobody feels comfortable investing in Ukraine, so Ukraine stays a shallowed out husk of its demographics and of its economy that nobody wants to invest in. And it's like, hey, see what happens when you leave the Russian world, see what happens when you leave the warm embrace of the Kremlin and their fuel stocks. But I see the only way this war ending isn't like necessarily enough Russians dying, even though that is one way the war could end. I think it's just simply the inputs no longer input. Either they don't have enough soldiers to keep pushing forward, and so they have to question about a wider mobilization that will be rejected by the wider public, and so they reconsider, actually coming to the table in good faith. And when I say good faith, I mean as in they're going to actually negotiate and not, go there to be with good interest towards Ukrainians, or the economic inputs don't input, as in they can't make enough money to pay the soldiers. They can't make enough money to keep civil services going. They can't pay enough money to keep everything going. The Ukrainians are trying to target this outcome of the war right now. That seems to be the main strategy. There doesn't seem to be a Ukrainian strategy of, we're going to launch this big counteroffensive that's going to take X, Y, and Z, though they're constantly positioning clearly because they'd like that option to somewhat always be on the table, no matter how realistic that seems. They're targeting their drones oil refineries. They're targeting their drones at oil export terminals, at one point knocking out 40% of Russia's ability to export. That means their capacity to actually get the oil from their country out to sea. They disabled 40% of it at one point during the big attack in the St. Petersburg region. And so it seems the Ukrainians are essentially saying, well, one advantage the Russians have is they're the largest country on the planet. Another disadvantage of that is that they're the largest country of the planet, and so they can't cover air defense systems everywhere. Their economy is stretched over such a wide area, and Ukrainian range is increasing so much that the economic damage the Ukrainians can do in bringing the war back to Russia is ever increasing.
Right, which, and I mean, we know, of course, like Biden's initial reluctance to encourage Ukraine to go after Russian economic targets. Obviously, as soon as they actually started hitting the refineries and the extraction facilities, Russia really started hurting. We saw that, you know.
Yeah, but what about Harris's election chances? We didn't want the oil prices to go.
I do consider it, like, both strategically and morally a massive failure that Democrats don't make positive cases for reinforcing Ukraine. Like, we got a little window on that, but, like, I mean, this is a critical... I don't want to be negative on this, right? Because I've always been a big advocate for Ukraine getting the arms that it needs. I'm happy that EU rearmament is happening to the extent that it's lending aid to Ukraine. I wish America was lending more aid. But it seems like you can damage Russia's economy as much as you want, but it seems like we have lowered the price for engaging in conflict, in promoting civil unrest through drone warfare so low that even a pathetically poor country could maintain it. Even if Russia collapsed, it would only take, I think, like a dedicated group of insurgents or wannabe insurrectionists on the, you know, eastern fringes of Ukraine to meaningfully hold up resistance as long as they were getting supplied the equipment for drone manufacturing. It seems like the only way to end this properly, you couldn't beat Russia out of it. They would have to agree to stop. Like, Russia would have to be put in a position where it could no longer belligerently toss drones across the border. And as you said, like, just pepper them and keep Ukraine forever like a war-torn country for the cost of what? Like 10, 20 million a year. You could just always blanket the eastern part of the country with minor drone attacks. And that's all it takes, really, to make people feel like they're always at war. I don't know where you move from that. It's so like we can't do anything to Iran. We can't do anything to Iran to dismantle their military capabilities because it's always just a guy with a Shahed in like a garage somewhere. It's so easy to conduct war now.
I will say this is a little, there's major differences between how Iran is conducting its war and how Russia conducts it. Iran doesn't have to go anywhere, right? Iran doesn't have to move masses of troops across locations that could potentially be blown up. They essentially have to keep their command and control dispersed, keep their missile control dispersed, and keep enough of these IRGC, basically dinghy boats that can go up next to ships to keep the Strait of Hormuz like under some amount of control. So this is, to be quite frank, a very low bar, generally speaking. If you cannot meet that bar, then there's not really much the Iranians can do. But so far, they've been able to meet that bar, and this administration has not shown the ability to get past that.
Then let me ask you. Let me ask a specific question then. So if somehow Ukraine pulled out a nasty, snapped their fingers, Russia can no longer send men west. None. It's they've retreated. There's not a single Russian in Ukraine proper. They're just holding what they have with drones, with their existing fortifications, the mines, the trenches, and they're continuing to throw drones westward. Could Ukraine retake that land, or would, even in the absence of Russian soldiers, it remain dangerous enough that it stays in no man's land?
It would be taken. It's not that drones are so overwhelming that you can't move anywhere. You can't necessarily move anywhere trying to get around these defenses, all these mine works. The way it works is, yes, drones make it so that you have a transparent battlefield and very quick responsiveness. But the Ukrainians have worked very hard to set it up so that they can concentrate their fire in certain directions, because the front line in Ukraine is huge. It is ginormous. I can't exaggerate it enough that it is a gigantic front line. And so you're not going to have drones in every spot at all locations at the same time, and you're not going to be able to have the responsiveness as quick as you would want everywhere. So what they do is the areas you don't want the Russians to go, you cover it with mines, you cover it with like any number of obstacles to make it so that their vehicles can only go one way, and that one way is attuned with artillery, drone response, and everything you can think of. And the infantry, that's the more difficult thing, because if they send a guy to walk over a barrier in a pair of 1 or 2, that's how you get the infiltration tactics. That's the more difficult thing to deal with. But I don't think the difficulty is going to be in taking it all back if the Russians don't send men. The Russians would eventually run out of men because they would keep dying from the drone warfare. You could be 30 kilometers, 40, 50 kilometers from the front line and still die. And so at the end of the day, they would not be able to maintain, I think, the occupation, because the Ukrainians would just advance forward and take it.
It's so scary. I know it sounds like I guess a low IQ observation. It's just very spiritually damaging, the idea that you have a war with very high stakes and very high casualties on both sides, but one where the ebb and flow of power and of troop movements isn't dictated by like these big surges. It's not directed by interpersonal engagement or by supremacy of arms or higher quality equipment. It's just like a weird, you can't hide, you can't do anything, everybody's always watching, and a $500 drone can fucking kill you, and that's that. And it's just, you never get the narrative of victory there, right? You never get this, you never get something that the papers want to print. You never get like a decisive blow. Well, you can, right? When Ukraine attacks like economic facilities, oil extraction, but on the front itself, and I think a lot of people feel this in the burnout, right? A lot of people, they in Europe and America, feel a little bit trepidatious advocating for more arms and more money being given to Ukraine, because the perception among a lot of people is like, this is just an actual permanent war. It's like World War I, except now the perpetual stalemate of trench warfare is being supplemented by the perpetual stalemate of like the panoptical drone, where every charge across the line is met not only with artillery fire and machine gun fire, but also with, little FPV bomblets smashing you in the face. It's very, I don't know, it's very demoralizing.
I see it in a few ways. In the way that you see it, I see it as demoralizing. I've heard like the buzz of the drones above me. It's very dreary when you're surrounded by all of that, right? I mean, it's whatever. But it's like there's a lot of drones. They're everywhere. We've had failed evacuations because of drones. I've seen like the worst when it comes to these drones. It's terrible, but I also acknowledge that these are very empowering weapons in their own right. Where before you needed a massive industrial base in order to produce like weapons that people could see as civilization ending, you demolish cities. And instead now with like $878, I believe is the going rate, you can make a drone that could take out armored vehicle carrying 15 soldiers. You could make drones that can intercept helicopters. You can make drones that can take out the economic foundation of the state invading you. And so in some ways, I acknowledge the dreariness of it, but I also acknowledge the way that this can empower smaller nation states with mass drone swarm tactics that can overwhelm larger nation states that usually relied on the fact that they just had more men they could put a gun in the rifle of, like a rifle in their hand. Now it's not that simple. Of course, if you have more drone capacity to produce, it's still scary, but I also acknowledge that if it wasn't for drones, I don't know where Ukraine would be at this point. And so those are the two ways that I have to think about this. On one hand, of course, it changes the face of warfare. These types of evolutions will continue to happen in warfare. They'll always happen in warfare. So we got to learn to live with them. But one other conclusion I found is to hold a kilometer front line on the Ukrainian side, roughly speaking, it takes about 15 men. To hold a kilometer. Back in World War II, we're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men. So that right there, in and of itself, puts Ukraine in a position that they wouldn't have even been able to dream of at the opening salvo of this war.
It's like it's expanding the radius of insurgency, where it used to be, because I'm trying to imagine, like, you apply this in other areas where there's a lot of civil unrest. Like, I don't know, I'm thinking like the cartels in Mexico, right? The cartels in Mexico, they essentially control like large portions of the country, not formally, but I mean, they do, And if there was ever some kind of like big conflict between the cartels in Mexico. At the direct line of conflict historically, you would expect that to take place in specific towns or like along the lines closer to areas of cartel control. But now it's like, what happens if the cartels think like, okay, it's going to come down soon, like it's us or them, they start, you know, investing, they buy, they build, and then you get that kind of drone insurgency. They do what Russia does, where they just start peppering Mexico City. They could blanket the whole country. The range is enough. They're distributed throughout the country enough. They could like hold down a much larger country. Like, it's the democratization thing. You say, could Ukraine have won against Russia without drone warfare? I don't know. Probably not, because it does do a lot to make symmetrical the engagement. I'm reminded of that, and I don't even know how true this is. I only know like the pithy little Reddit, you know, infographic bit. The Pope banned crossbows because now a little peasant boy with no military training could kill a knight in plate armor with you know, from a great distance. It's too scary. It does too much to democratize, to level the playing field, which on some hands it's good because a lot of the knights were rapists and assholes. But on the other hand, I don't know, I'm sure highwaymen really fucking liked crossbows too, because now they could do whatever they wanted. You could hire like 2 knight guards for your little merchant caravan, and like if they get fucking shot through the forest clearing, then I guess it was a waste of money, you know?
I don't know if this is Doomer HQ, but I'll give you more Doomer supply. I can do this.
I know. I mean, because I want to ask, because I know.
Let me throw this scenario.
Please,
at you. You remember Operation Spiderweb, right?
No. Please remind me.
Operation Spiderweb was when the Ukrainians got a bunch of shipping containers on the back of trucks. They got them deployed outside of major Russian air bases.
The videos of them blowing up the airfields,
and then they blew up the air bases because the drones flew out of the trucks, and it showed that you didn't even need to have the operator necessarily there in order to do this.
Yeah, that was
goated.
Beast mode. Hashtag beast mode.
It destroyed like double digits percentage of like Russia's strategic bomber fleet. It did like a lot of billions and billions worth of dollars.
They hit the fucking Pentagon.
One of the things I thought about is, what if somebody wanted to hit the Pentagon? What if somebody wanted to take these things, and you're say, of course, Ukraine has a much bigger industrial base than say like a simple terror cell. But if you're 3 to 4 to 5 guys with some 3D printers in any, you know, it could be Middletown suburbia, who cares? And you are able to put together 30, 40, 50 of these drones, put them in, let's say, instead of 2 massive shipping containers, 2 vans, 3 vans across Washington, D.C., and just figure out some of the dynamics. If you got somebody with a little engineering know-how, what kind of damage could you do?
Like literally as much as you wanted. If you had the right equipment, you could do so much. There's nothing anyone could do to stop it. It's like handguns, where in America, like everyone has a gun if they wanted one, right? I guess it's pretty easy to get your hands on a gun here. So our policy when it comes to firearm handling and how to deal with people with firearms, for the most part, is try to build a world where people don't want to do mass killings. Because if you've arrived at the point where people want to and are ready to and have the ability to, you will never be able to fund the police enough that every shooter could be stopped in time. Like you just have to accept that the widespread availability of firearms has made the potential for mass violence very easy if people want to engage in it. So you have to keep society stable enough that people don't want to. Maybe that's where this is all leading geopolitically. Maybe the invention of drone warfare is just making war so costly, even between non-peer nations. Look at us in Iran. We're wasting tomahawks. They're throwing shaheeds at us. That eventually people are going to have to learn, like, you just have to do diplomacy. You literally can't do war anymore. Unless you're willing to blanket them with nukes, there's no way to take over territory or meaningfully suppress another country as long as they have the bare minimum amount of money necessary to produce the modern equalizer, the drone. And if that's the case, I don't know how the world adapts to that. And I would hope that, like, eventually Putin would learn this. It'd be nice if he, like, caught up to that point, I guess.
I mean, the world will just have to adapt to it. I hope that the adaptation will be largely positive when it comes to interstate relations, but I worry about it's like a lot of times nation states see how destructive war are now versus back in the day when it's like, what was the casualties? Like 3 peasants and a chicken, sir. It's like, okay, well, I will continue my wars of conquest. So now, you know, it's like tons and tons of cities, tons and tons of destruction. And so I'd like to hope that this will demotivate states. But if the wars do happen, as some warmongers will want a war anyway, like Vladimir Putin, then I think it's going to mean really destructive wars like this. One thing I wonder about is, you know, I'm a supporter of Taiwan. That's probably not a surprise to anyone. And I just want Taiwan to be able to manage their own affairs. That's generally my position. They want to go back with the Chinese, whatever. If they want to do their own thing, whatever. I base a lot of my politics in the self-rule of people. And so one of my main, I don't want to say one of my main strategies, because that's taking credit for something I didn't do, but one of the main strategies made the most sense to me always, and I think will always proposed by the most intelligent people in the room, was a porcupine strategy. American strategy towards China was always, let's make it so we can take our aircraft carriers, go right off their coast, and just bomb the shit out of them. But a smarter strategy might be, make them come to you. There's an ocean there. That means you got to get ships and put them full of soldiers and actually make the decision to do a naval landing. Naval landings can be contested. Naval landings can especially be contested if there's 10,000 drones swarming at your ship at the same time as you're trying to land people off the shore. And the hope would be that the threat of a humiliating defeat for a nationalist leader that kind of puts their, you know, honor in these types of things, that could lose the legitimacy of the rule if they were to fail, like the junta did in Argentina. Well, maybe you just don't do it. And that's what I would like. That's the outcome I want. I want to deter war as much as possible. So that is my dream for how this could be used to hopefully one day deter war, because I'm a dreamer.
No, I don't think you're right. I think we're kind of seeing things trend in that direction. For instance, you have like Operation Market Gardener with Yemen and the Houthis striking ships in the Red Sea, where even in spite of our like overwhelming naval might, we can't really stop the Houthis from doing what we want. Saudi Arabia couldn't. How could we, you know? Now that drone technology is advancing so quickly.
I'm sorry, you said Operation Market Garden was when the British landed in like Holland.
Did I mix two things? Wait, what was the one under Biden where we struck them after they started attacking ships in the Red Sea following October 7th? Wasn't that something?
I don't know, the big boom operation. I don't know, but I remember Operation
Prosperity Guardian. Okay, I mixed them up.
Yeah,
Prosperity Guardian. Well, like even us and the Saudi Arabia, both pretty powerful countries, if we can't stop the Houthis, and the Houthis are not strong, not really, not in the scale that we're talking about here, we're eventually just going to have to deal with everyone. Like, I guess the hope pill, what you're advocating for, and I really hope it works out this way, is that if people get the message, like, you just can't do old style imperialism anymore. You can't look at a country and have competing interests and say, we're just going to make you do what we want. And on some levels, that's good. On some levels, that's bad. But if it pushes everyone towards more, like, I don't know, agreeable behavior, recognizing that, like, if there is a neighboring country that doesn't want you to be stable, you will not be stable. They can pepper you. It doesn't matter if they're smaller. It doesn't matter if they're weaker. It doesn't matter if they're poorer. As long as they exist, you can't know peace. So you had better get along with them. Maybe, I don't know. If Russia and Ukraine, and I don't want to imply that they're like equal partners in this. This is Russia's fuck up, obviously. But like, if Russia ever sat down and they were like, ooh, we bit off more than we could chew. Like, they finally admitted it. They're like, okay, we got to stop. Some internal revolt, Putin goes down, whatever. If they ever sat down and admitted, like, this just can't work. We just can't do this. You know, we have to focus on ourselves. Hopefully that would lead to a bit of an international reconciliation, you know? Like, people would look at that and go, okay, I guess we just can't do that anymore, you know? They touched the porcupine. And if Russia can't make it past the quills, you know, how the fuck could anyone else? It's not like Russia was weak at the start of the war, certainly weaker than they thought they were, but, you know, they had plenty of men and equipment. If they can't do it, how could anyone?
Because there's been times when Russia's failed before, and I don't know if it really shook public consciousness. I mean, when the Japanese beat Russia, I think that said something about where the state of the world was, and like what you know, nation states outside of like the Western Hemisphere.
So they need to do it again.
Compete and like, what was that?
So Japan needs to beat Russia again.
I mean, like, you can't leak what I told you in confidence on the stream right now.
You don't want to fight a two-front war. They wouldn't be happy.
But the Soviets like tried to take Poland and they failed, like on the first go around at least. Like, there was like times where overwhelming power still like met like a confrontation, and I don't know if it's going to lead to that. I honestly think it's going to take a lot more people putting their hand in the cookie jar and losing it before like there's a general realization that there's not just the atomic threat anymore. There's the like civilizational threat to your cities anytime they're in range of drones. I'd like to think that would go the way of democratization, but I also think if there's a country that doesn't have doesn't have drones, and some like country like China invades you, what the fuck are you gonna do? They're gonna have all the drones. They're not only bigger than you, but they're gonna have more drone production than any other country on the planet. And so if you're not on the boat, then you're in the water. You're drowning. And so there's also that fear I have.
I worry for Taiwan a lot. Because it seems like we're giving China the green flag. We were looking at a post from the Kobesi article, the account on Twitter, right before we started talking, which was internally U.S. officials think that if China attempted to take Taiwan right now, like we've lost so many missiles in Iran, we wouldn't even be able to put up a good defense against China, which is like, it's crazy how much of a green light we're giving them right now. I really hope they don't take it. I would like to believe that it's like the porcupine again, right? Like China is very strong, but Taiwan is pretty strong too, and they could hold the line, and they have an island fortress, and it would be difficult. I don't know if they'd be able to defend themselves as well as Ukraine, though, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, they have different circumstances too. Like Ukraine doesn't have like an ocean between them and the Russians. They probably prefer it if they did. But at the end of the day, I do worry about it. And the use of these munitions is just so stupid. I was told by everybody who said, we have to abandon the Ukrainians now. We simply cannot give them one more bullet, one more cent, and America will collapse. We need to take all of our military resources and pivot it towards Asia, Dylan. The Chinese, Dylan. The Chinese. And I'm like, okay, the fucking Chinese. And then I look over and they take all those bombs and they just throw it at Iran. And it's like, what did you gain out of it? Well, they're angry. The strait's closed. So it's
our THAAD missile defenses, our Patriots, our fucking Tomahawks. They're just in a goddamn hole right now. Yeah, we've spent like honestly, we probably spent like 300 billion somehow. I know the official numbers don't reflect that. I'm sure, 10 years from now, they're going to look back and go, actually, by that point, somehow we'd spent $1/3 trillion, which, I mean, if that had gone to Ukraine or Taiwan, they could have done so much good with it.
They've spent probably double what we've given to the Ukrainians.
Yeah. It's fucked.
Over the entirety of the war, and they've done it in like 2 months.
It reminds me.
The spending request was for 220 billion.
Yeah.
And then I remember at the start, like racking up at least 20 to 30 billion. It's been a while since I checked, but no, that 300 billion price tag is something that is probably well within reason of where this will end up.
Yeah, listen, especially considering the economic damages we're doing to like the global fuel economy, if 300 billion ends up being the final bill to us, that would be like a dream come true at this point. It reminds me a lot of, you talk about like, it's less about troop movement. Everyone, your drones, the satellites, everyone's got eyes on you. It reminds me of, and you'll have to forgive me for like a sophomoric reference here, but in 1984, there's something, and I keep thinking about it because it makes me very sad.
1980, what is that book?
1984, the hit summer bestseller by.
Is that the one that's coming out with Joe Rogan as the pig?
No, that's Animal Farm. Wait, are you doing a bit?
Oh, okay.
That's Animal Farm.
Yeah.
Wait, have you read 1984?
Just making sure. I know 1984.
It's actually a very good book.
Reading, but I know of its existence.
I know it gets me. It's like Fight Club, where the movie's pretty good, but then if you only engage with it through the periphery of the cultural like information through osmosis, it gets to be like a meme. Anyway, there's one of the big pointers is that the world split up into super empires, and they're fighting constantly, but also kind of not really. And one of the goals these mega empires have agreed upon, essentially, de facto, is that actual war with actual soldiers and actual nuclear weapons is really costly and it's bad for business. So what they do instead is they spend an ungodly amount of money and manpower on building these like mega projects, Wunderwaffen, these super mega floating fortresses, right? And they send them out there in the ocean to sink them. They get them into fights where they know they're going to be sunk. $100 billion on a boat and it's down. And it reminds me a bit of this of modern drone warfare, where now that the line on the map is moved more through this suffluence, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you flood something with it, you saturate. The saturation of drones, war is more about burning money in both directions, not men. So you can have two economies where they burn off an excess of wealth, you know, through their respective industries. You just burn them at a hole in the ground. You know, Ukraine and Russia could both commit like $1 trillion to just self-destruct in a ditch in here, you know, and it wouldn't even mean anything. It doesn't even necessarily need to cost human lives.
It's interesting because, like, it is true that it is much more costly to take land, but the main motivations of a lot of the people involved still is going to be land. It's still going to be the territorial boundaries. It's going to be people going back to their homes or people taking other people's homes, and so they're going to work against the system. Like, it was more costly to attack than it was to defend during World War I. People still, to push their military objectives, their political objectives, had to attack. For the Russians, the same thing is true at the moment. And I will say one thing that probably should worry Russian commanders is that the more that these deep strike drones proliferate, the gap is that you had short range drones that could go like 3 or 5 kilometers. Then it became 5 to 10, then 15, and that was pretty, you know, vicious. And then in the back, you had the longer range ones that go like 100, 200, 300 kilometers. The problem was the mid range. The Ukrainians wanted more drones in that mid-range territory where they could strike and hit people before they even get to the front line, break down their logistics. So those soldiers on the front line are like, do I get water today? I don't. Do I get water today? I don't. Fuck it, I'm surrendering. You know, they want to promote that type of breakdown of law and order, which I think is the clearest description of war, is the breakdown of law and order.
What is it going to take,
near
man? It's so... I feel like the Russians have had their dicks stuck in a blender. Not to suggest Ukraine isn't suffering too, but Ukraine is the blender, you know? Like that, it's not equivalent. Russia can withdraw, Ukraine can't. Not really. Like, is there any shift politically? I know Putin doesn't want to do another
negotiations,
conscription wave, like real negotiations, not Russia saying, well, what if we kept the land, you know, like real negotiations. Is there anything? Is anyone backing off a little bit here on Russia?
The last offer I saw from Peskov as of 24 hours ago was that Zelensky can come to Moscow and they can negotiate a deal in Moscow based upon previous Russian offers.
What is it going to take, man?
It's gonna take Russian economic buckling, and it's gonna take the war machine itself just stop functioning.
Do they need to strike?
They're going to keep turning the wrench on this, keep turning the handle until eventually it just breaks. It gets too rusty, and at some point it breaks, and that is when I think the Russians will either lose everything or come to the table. For the Ukrainians, I mean, of course, they have the same risk of like a certain break in the economy, especially if they can't defend their factories, or, you know, there's a question of them not being able to find the budget, which the Russians have the same problem right now. If oil goes back under $100 a barrel, they will not be able to fulfill the budget. It's just not, it will not be physically possible. This war was in many ways a buoy for the Russian economy. These issues are still structural. It's not like the war is going to change all the structural problems, but they certainly appreciate the removal of sanctions and the buoy of the heavy price increases.
Reversing sanctions or maintaining the leave on Russian sanctions even after telling the press that he wouldn't. It's been such a fucking...
It was Bessent who said it, but yeah, it was infuriating.
Bessent, sorry, not Lutnick, Bessent, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, Lutnick was the Epstein Islander.
Right, the less pedophilic of the two Yeah. That's
the one who made up that story that, oh, when Epstein, he pointed me at his massage table when I was next to my wife, and I knew at that moment he was a dastardly individual, and I skedaddled out of that one before immediately going to Epstein Island after, whatever.
No, I didn't. No, I mean it's a spiritually Russian move, really, going to Epstein Island. I don't know. Do you think that Ukraine, like, there's no way out of this without a strike on Moscow? Do you think that, like, doing a decapitation strike, if ever it was on the table, obviously that'd be very difficult because you'd have to cross 1,500 miles.
I don't think a decapitation. I mean, if Putin just died, I think that would be a crisis for the Russians because they would have power shifting. They have structures for that. But whoever takes that place, the systems are built into Putin. They're not built into any other individual. And even if they're built into the office in some capacity, like he's not going to have the same trust. He's not going to have the same confidence. People aren't going to be scared of him in the way that Putin is. And so in some ways, if Putin died tomorrow and someone took his place, they might think, if I pull out now, they're going to think I'm weak and I'm going to be killed like Prigozhin. And so what I need to do is actually double down on the war. We can't really know how the decapitation strike would end, especially if the Ukrainians kill Putin. Then the reaction would be even further like, well, what's the reaction to a foreign country assassinating your president? Okay, we withdraw. Like, even if America was about to pull out of Vietnam, if right before we pulled out, the Viet Cong assassinated Nixon,
It
that
probably
might actually
would
change the dynamic
Yeah,
somewhat.
we'd still be in there today. Yeah, the Viet Cong would still be taking cracks at us from little grass
So
hats.
that's why I focus more on the structures, where it's not really a question of like the decision making unless they see that it's going down and they're grabbing on the nearest escape hatch. That's why I think we need to work to undermine both Russian confidence that they can just wait out the West, that they can just keep pushing forward, that eventual Ukrainian collapse will come, while also undermining their military industrial complex that carries out the war, while allowing the Ukrainians to, you know, do the rest of destroying the spirit of the Russian army.
Well, I hope that the bottom floor for getting Russia to stop economically in terms of the damage they suffer is not as low as completely eliminating their ability to engage in drone warfare, because it seems like that bar is incredibly low.
You don't, but the drone warfare isn't, they will continue to produce drones, but to win the war, Russia cannot just win it on drones. If they're just like fighting only a drone war and they've lost the artillery advantage, they've lost the long range strike advantage, they've lost the transport, like they can't transport their trucks to the front line. They've lost, for example, like the rails that support the occupation. It's not like occupied territory just stays occupied by nature. Like you take it and it changes color and that's the end of it. There's people there who collaborate. There's people there who burn like Russian logistics lines, and like there's people who counteract them. The earth itself doesn't want them there. I don't want to be like philosophic about it, but there's a lot of people who aren't happy with the Russian occupation. And so when you combine that with the breakdown of the pay for the soldiers who are there because they're in $50,000 worth of debt, not because they believe that fucking Mariupol should be theirs. They don't care about Mariupol. In that scenario, I don't know how the Russian army will react, but it won't react positively.
I really hope it works out. I hope that eventually the good sense of the average conscript prevails, and they decide that you know, getting sent home in a zinc coffin and having $5 tossed at their mom isn't actually worth their life. You know,
be clear, the Russian soldiers that are fighting are not conscripts. They are volunteers. Every single one of them has signed a contract. They chose to be there. The Ukrainians are the ones that are fighting a war of survival, so they have the conscripts. The only people who are conscripts on the Russian side, and this is how fucked this war is to its core, are Ukrainians. The only ones they force to fight by the gun are people in occupied territory that they force to go into conscription. So even when they say you're Russian, you're still Ukrainian to them.
Yeah. Well, I hope then that Putin is forced to do another big draft, and every single one of the people he drafts all collectively decide that their lives aren't worth $5 in a zinc coffin, and then it all falls apart. I don't know. It's such a... At least with traditional warfare, I think you get sort of the narrative satisfaction of going, oh, you know, here's the Battle of the Bulge. Look at this line move. Look at this dramatic play, this action. You can have an opinion on it. It's so abstract here, which is why I appreciate you coming on. In addition to, you know, your initiative to get one specific guy in Baltimore thrown in the can. It's been a while since I've caught up on this, and also caught up with you. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Also, if people are interested at all in supporting Ukraine or making sure that politicians support Ukraine once the next session comes into place, I do have an initiative called Track Ukraine. You can go to trackukraine.com or at Track Ukraine on Instagram, Twitter, or Blue Sky. And every day we're posting graphics that show where politicians stand on the Russian invasion of Ukraine, if they still support Ukraine. And we also have a search tool on our website where you can check the voting record of your legislator. You can enter in your address or their name, and you can see how they voted through their past votes in history. We also have an ambassadorship program where we have Ukrainians speak to legislators and candidates running for office who want to hear from Ukrainians' perspectives. So we're trying to do our best to both raise awareness, have a level of transparency, as well as try to have people hear the voices of those directly affected by the war after 5 years of white noise since February 22.
If I'm not mistaken, you and I will both be speaking soon to a candidate in part over this. So
yes, this weekend.
I
believe.
It's good. This should, in my mind, this should be like a morally unambiguous position, right? Support for Ukraine. So it has not taken the limelight in recent years, but it is still very important because I don't really know what kind of consistent foreign policy position a progressive could have if they wavered on this. You know,
There's only one progressive foreign policy position on this.
Yeah,
the United States told Ukraine to disarm or we would starve them. That's a real thing that happened. We would not give them the food aid while they went through the worst inflation crisis of their time, or the Russians could invade. That was the offer that was put on the table by the Clinton administration and Boris Yeltsin. They then gave up their atomic weapons for security assurances, and Obama laughed off in 2012 while debating Mitt Romney the idea that the Russians could invade. The Russians then invade in 2014. Obama tells them not to resist. The Ukrainians do their best. They end up still fighting over the Donbass, and up to 2022, the question of even giving Ukraine bullets, munitions to fill their guns was still like a controversial topic as they were slowly being occupied. And then when the full-scale invasion happens, we give them all these insurances that will stand with them. We get them reliant on American weapon systems. And then we say, never mind, you can have those things being like hunking chunks of metal in the middle of Timbuktu fucking nowhere. We're not going to give you the munitions to maintain them. What does that mean practically on the front line outside of us betraying them, disarming a nation, and abandoning them to the colonial empire, settler empire that is having settlers moved into the homes of those who are displaced? It means the war expanding into Zaporizhia, a city of 600 to 800,000 people. It means the war expanding deeper into Kharkiv. It means the war expanding deeper into Sumy. The Russians are doing like random raids over the border, grabbing civilians in the Sumy Oblast. If they get within the borders of these cities, we're talking about millions upon millions upon millions of more people displaced, making Ukrainians the most displaced population in the entire world. Is the stakes of us not continuing to support Ukraine to compel the Russians to come to the negotiating table. That is the goal of the Russian army, and they are trying to pursue it. And even if they haven't pursued it particularly effectively, we shouldn't forget, like, the Russians, you know, they'll bang their head against the wall until they find a solution. That doesn't mean they will, but if we abandon Ukrainians at this point, this will be one of the worst crimes, one of the worst moral failures of the United States of the 21st century, maybe in its entire 250-year history, to make a nation reliant on you for its security and then abandon it to this type of barbarism, to the human safari in Kherson, the human safari in Konstantinivka. It's something that the left should not align itself with.
He's ulting? No, it's gonna be tough to explain the history books too, you know, considering the narrative of defeating fascism in Europe during World War II, and then a fascist country did it again, and everyone was like, eh. You know, it's gonna be a bit confusing. I think it's gonna be tough to explain that to our forebears. So, no, I'm very happy you've launched Track Ukraine. I know that PV is very happy about it as well, because the fact that this issue has taken less of a limelight, I think, can be exploited by some who have had historically bad positions on Ukraine and Russia, which, I mean, shouldn't be normalized in the long run. You know, think there should be some room for discussion, but like not. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of people out there.
Wait, do you not think that
Russia
those who said that
skeptic.
the war wouldn't happen and then said it'd be over in 2 weeks should not be the people still leading the discussion 5 years on?
I mean, it is insane to me that I guess to put it as lightly as possible, there's no skepticism on the legitimacy of their analysis following that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe this meant something, or maybe it reflected something about prior biases, you know? I don't know. There are a lot of people in the online left. I mean, you know, we all know who we're talking about, who still act as though there's some kind of moral ambiguity to supporting Ukraine. That this is some sort
John
of
Mearsheimer.
active, yeah, who, you know, longtime friend of the channel, Mearsheimer. It's the idea that there's some kind of like extension of U.S. imperial interests in preventing Ukraine from being taken over by a neighboring fascist country. I don't know. I mean, everyone who watches this knows my positions, and yours, I assume, certainly by this point.
I got to tell you, every campaign I've talked to, I've had such fantastic engagement with them. We're talking, I mean, we're hearing a lot of things that we knew were like falsehoods that have kind of spread it around, like Boris Johnson sabotaged the peace deal, or like just things that like narratives that have just floated around for a while. But in the vast majority of these engagements, people want to know, they want to learn, they're coming at it earnestly, and the discussions have been very productive. I mean, I think Hartzell was the discussion that I knew was going to be a difficult one, but an interesting one, because I knew he was genuine, and I knew that he held a position against Ukraine aid. But after we've had like 2 rounds of talks, I've talked to him for like 4.5 to 5 hours almost in total, like trying to communicate these positions, bringing Ukrainians on. Next, last time I talked to him with somebody who was displaced by both the Israeli and Russian armies, so they could talk to the experience of the fucking
Poor
sad part about it, like,
guy,
you know what, we're
man.
leaving Lebanon to get away from war. Let me go to Ukraine.
Was
the family decision.
In 2021, clueless, finally a peaceful home in fucking Eastern Ukraine. Yeah, that fucking sucks. Yeah,
and then next we're gonna have him talk to labor activists. I mean, these are perspectives that don't get highlighted because they're just not on 3-letter media.
No, 100%. And I think, thankfully, I think that in spite of the buzz, the noise online, where sometimes it's really difficult to get like U.S. skeptical perspectives in mainstream media, so you're very vulnerable to narratives pushed by countries and institutions that are not just skeptical of U.S. empire, but also just like pro other empire. You know, I think that in the real world, the average progressive American, you know, average left of center, I think they know what's up on this one. I think that support for Ukraine is a widely held, uncontroversial position among people who, by and large, care about other people. So I think that this is a winning issue, and I think we should talk about it more.
Absolutely. I mean, I was having this discuss. I mean, the PV thing did not just happen like that, right? When they came out and they made their, for those who don't know, the PV changed their policy to make it so that support for Ukraine was a red line, and they will not endorse candidates that don't support Ukraine. And I appreciated that, but that was like a week of discussions, and a lot of that was not just centered in the morality of it. It was also centered in the strategy of it. You're a progressive movement. Ukraine is overwhelmingly beloved in the Democratic Party, okay? Whatever your perspective on it is, to the average Democratic voter, Russia got Trump in office, and then Russia continued to be Russia in the way it treats gays and other minority groups, and in the way it engages in Russia-like behavior. And then Russia starts the largest war in Europe since World War II, while being giving googly eyes to Donald Trump, who then gets elected again and starts being buddy-buddy with him, letting him get away with everything. To the average Democratic voter, Vladimir Putin is probably the closest you will get to Adolf Hitler on this planet right now today, right? And in the Democratic Party, when you look at average polling, 70% of the public, the vast majority, the American people, they support Ukraine. 30% of Republicans, like 60% of independents, and like 90% of Democrats. If you want to show people that you hold a position that is really about self-determination, it's really decolonial, it's consistent, that you're not just like a limp wrist Burning Man, like playing the bongo, saying peace and love to every issue, you need to engage seriously about an active crisis in Europe, and you should be the loudest voice in the room. We will not legalize like a Russian like settler colonialism and them taking homes. We will not allow children to be kidnapped in this way. I would love to see that because I think it's popular amongst the Democratic base. This is how you get wine moms to listen to you a little bit more. I mean, wine moms love Ukraine. I'm being honest. Half of those NAFO accounts are just wine moms on that wine in the Midwest going crazy. That's what half of NAFO is. Okay, God bless them.
They're painting Midwestern MILFs on the size of the drones they're sending out to the Donbass over there in Ukraine. You know, they know they got our boys.
So to me, it's electorally viable, it's morally correct, and it's something that could introduce progressive politics and a new way to people. You don't need to talk to them from the perspective, American security interests. You can be like, look, the reason I support Ukraine is because we've made promises to them. Russia is doing things that are wrong to their people. You make a moral argument to them that is going to appeal to the vast majority of the Democratic base. And then you know what you do after that? You say, that's also why I care about the sovereignty of the people in Sudan, the sovereignty of the people in Palestine, the sovereignty of the people. There's a connection, there's a through line you can make here. But if you're like, I support Palestine, but fuck the Ukrainians. I support, like, if that's this type of position, not only is it not viable, but it's also immoral, and it doesn't have a through line. It just looks like you're playing team games.
Yeah, you don't have an underlying ideology you can defer to. It doesn't tell you much about your broader priorities, you know? No, I agree 100%. Yeah, it's with Ukraine, it's such an obvious one too. It's like so black and white. Like normally I think you would expect there to be a much more, you know, like Russia is so evil. What they did was so evil and so stupid that like you don't even have there's not even a nuanced discussion to be had in it, really. It's just kind of straightforward. It's boringly straightforward, which is why I'm surprised.
Do you think that's the problem, is that everybody assumed that like, okay, we all agree on this, and so they were quiet about it for years, thinking the Democratic establishment will basically handle it. And then even though the Democratic establishments failed Ukraine before, Obama failed Ukraine, and just like leaving it for the Democratic establishment to handle it because they signaled on it so much. Number one, that was a failure. But number two, now as the Trumpian right-wing strategy went on this and it was abandonment, I think that the left should have been at the center point of like that, a backlash in reaction to that.
I was talking about this recently with there was a young man who was interviewing me, but I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the left is very bad at having a positive position on U.S. foreign policy. The left is very, very good at a negative position. That is to say, don't do X. We do a bad thing, the left says don't do that. For the most part, I tend to agree with that argument. We shouldn't be doing whatever it is we're doing. But the left is bad at making positive cases for what we should do with our power and with our wealth. A good example, and I brought this up the other day, so my apologies to people who are watching who are getting this twice. Like, we all agree it was bad when Elon and Doge cut US aid. Millions are dying and will die because we have cut US aid. But if we all recognize US aid being cut was bad, why did we not beforehand recognize that US aid was good? Why didn't we advocate positively for what was? In its absence, now we recognize that we miss it. If it was bad to get rid of it, would it have been good to double it? We need a more cohesive understanding of how the US can use its power and its wealth abroad than just don't intervene. Be anti-interventionist. Okay, sure, and for the most part I agree. But we do have this money. We do have this power. And I don't know, are we isolationists? I mean, do we think we should just never get involved? I mean, what about World War II? What if, you know, I think that's a silly position. Isolationism has always been like a phony, inconsistent, take cracks when you can, don't when you don't want to position. It's why Trump is the way he is, right? They campaign on isolationism, anti-interventionism. Then the moment a new, you know, forever war in the Middle East rears its head, they're like, fuck yeah, let's go for it. So I think we need to be better at making positive cases for the use of our wealth. And god damn it, if keeping Ukraine from getting overwhelmed by Russia isn't a pretty fucking good use of our wealth. You know, I'd say it's such a easy layup for us, man. It's morally good. I know I cut you off there. It's just I don't know. It's good. And from a purely pragmatic perspective, it costs us much less than what broader instability in Europe would cost if Russia was continued to allow, you know, was allowed to march westward further. It's just a win. I don't know, but we don't want to use it. The leftist often just says, well, the U.S. should do less. Okay, we should do less. What do we do with what we have? What do we do at all? What's the moral argument, you know? I'm rambling.
And the thing about USAID is, I'm telling you, I saw them doing work out there. They were doing good work. It was at like refugee collection centers where people are literally like fleeing their homes burning, and USAID is there to like provide them provide them with resources.
Like, it's an extension of US soft power. Yes, of course it is, but they're feeding people. And now Elon's cut it up and millions are going to die. Is the world better now? Did that improve things?
I was talking to somebody who works at one of the most advanced prosthetics manufacturers in the world, and it's a Ukrainian company, not too surprising considering what's going on there now, but they really do. It's incredible. Like, you can have presets for like certain hand gestures you want to make. So if you move your muscles in a certain way, you can have it like hold a pen, you can have it like get ready to like open a cap. It's really just interesting looking at all the technology. And I'm looking around and I see stickers, USAID on this CNC machine, USAID on this like thing they use to like, you know, put in this part or put in that part. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of USAID around here. He's like, oh yeah, and we were supposed to get more that would allow us to make a lot more of these things, but you know. And so they simply, you know, with what we gave them, they became one of the best prosthetics manufacturers in the world. And we could have gone further, but we decided to just, I don't know, stop before we could get even further ahead. I don't know. It's really disheartening.
No, I agree.
And when you see those stickers, it doesn't just say USAID. It says USAID from the American people. It was like, that is
I hate
soft
looking
power
good
as it should be.
in the eyes
as it should
of
be.
the world. Yeah, I don't know. Isolationism is such a phony ideology. It's so fake. It's always been the bide your time till the advantageous engagement comes up. Nobody actually believes in it. No one lives on an island. Even people who live on an island, we're all interconnected. Isolationism, you're just giving up on foreign policy. I don't know. It's like such a lazy answer. I'm rambling. And I've also held you for longer than I promised I would. Dylan, I really appreciate you taking the time. I look forward to speaking with you again come this weekend when we're interrogating a House candidate. And yeah, stay safe out there, okay?
Yeah, I got them locked up in the closet still. I'm gonna take them by truck, and it's gonna be a fantastic stream. People should really tune in. You'll never see anything like it.
Gotcha. And I'll push them to it. Take care, and yeah, stay safe out there.
Appreciate it, Vosh. You have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. That was a good chat. Yeah, I agree. I like Dylan a lot. Here, hold on. Close that, close this. Did I actually leave the call? Yes, I actually left the call. That was nice. Bosch won the debate. Crushed him. Yeah, hold on. Dylan, talk. There we go. Dude, my back is fucking killing me. Oh my God, what the fuck? I have to like do stretches or something. Oh. You know what would feel good as fuck if I was athletic enough to do it? One of the like hanging bar raise, like full leg lifts, you know? Like lifting my legs all the way up, like up into the air, not just my knees. Yeah. Fart shit ass, that's true. Yeah, I respect the hell out of Dylan. Man, imagine getting into like the YouTube politics game, and you're like, this is fun and all, I'm gonna go to a war zone. And then he just stayed there for years. Jesus. You know? I don't think I did a very good job of explaining some of my positions there, mostly because I don't want to ramble for too long. The 1984 thing I was talking about was, I worry about a world where you can maintain indefinite war in like a permanent like no-go zone, in a you know, just a no man's land where you just send equipment to die, and both countries involved in the war can incur minimal political costs for maintaining it because they're just using their productive capabilities to generate excess military equipment and just sending it over to be exploded. Like you get to siphon off excess wealth without much of a political consequence, you know? Just, yeah, paying contractors forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Just, you get taxed and the money goes to the contractors who build the drones, vroom, but nothing ever changes or moves. It's just actual permanent warfare. That does worry me, and I think we're kind of, yeah, it's like the status quo, but it's just the MIC's dream, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. The climate apocalypse will come for us eventually, I suppose. It was nice hearing how optimistic Dylan was for a change. Yeah, I mean, it is good, even if it's like weird to think about. It is good that modern drone technology has acted as the crossbow of the modern world. It allows stalemates between non-peer nations. In some ways that's very good, in some ways it's very bad. Maybe it's good that like your village can no longer be terrorized by one knight, like one guy with plate armor and a sword, like, because if no one in that village has anything more than farming equipment or a dagger, one knight with a sword could kill like a lot of people, probably. But now you've got crossbows, and you can just kill the knight. And if that knight is like a crazy murderer or rapist or whatever, that's great. But it's probably bad if now like a group of vagabonds with crossbows can just do literally whatever they want, unless you're able to mount like a small army to kill them. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, it's on one hand, the crazy rapist knights are no longer as much of a problem. On the other hand, highwaymen now have access to the most advanced military technology in the world. So, yeah. Yeah, what happens if the crossbowmen are crazy rapists? I don't know. The proliferation of the AK-47 is what eventually broke European colonial holds over their colonies. Yeah, no, that's 100% true, especially in like North Africa, right? And parts of Southeast Asia. The availability of inexpensive, mass-produced automatic weapons was, it was like, damn, well, now like a random kid, a 14-year-old kid has access to basically the best, you know, conventional weaponry you can get, really. Yeah. Man, what would happen though if the Mexican cartels did that? They wouldn't, because there's an economic incentive for them not to. They're too well integrated into the government. But can you imagine if something like that did happen? Like if there was like if the Zapatistas were crazy and not based or something, like some little breakaway state, tiny and not very powerful, but they can just produce drones like a motherfucker, or they're getting fronted by another country. I don't know. They can get crushed. They have no manpower. Well, kinda. I mean, with the Zapatistas, yes, of course. But like, what about Yemen? The cartels do have drones. I mean, like modern drone warfare. If the cartels were like, yeah, we can produce 20,000 drones a week, and we're just gonna bomb everything nearby because we, you know, you understand me. The cartels have tanks. You're misunderstanding my point. It's not about whether you can have a drone. Anyone, you can buy a drone at fucking Best Buy, you know? I mean modern drone warfare, as demonstrated by Ukraine, or to an extent Iran, though as Dylan correctly pointed out, there's a different situation there. Yeah, I don't know. Weird. And don't you think something like that can happen in a NATO country? No, I do believe that. It seems like what drone warfare is doing is it's taking the problems with insurgency and making them have a radius outside the country that's being insurgent. Like in Afghanistan, both America and the Soviet Union failed to remove the Taliban because they could hide in the mountains, and it's really fucking difficult. It's really, really, really difficult to like properly get rid of an insurgency. It's like more times than not you fail in trying, right? But now, if an insurgent country wanted to, even if they were not being directly invaded, they could impose the conditions of that insurgency in a range around the area they control, not just the area itself. Now it's not just random, you know, IEDs and attacks and so on within the area they have loose control over. Now they can do it 100 miles out, as long as they have the ability to produce lots and lots of drones, which, I mean, they're only going to get cheaper with time. I don't know. Some of you motherfuckers in chat are trying to argue with me right now, and you don't understand that I'm just talking to myself. I wasn't listening anyway. Yeah, that's fair. Post Dylan talk. Can I be vulnerable with you? Can I be vulnerable with you? I'm like actually mad about my back pain right now, man. I'm like Hold on. I tried to fix it yesterday. It's like I had a hard time sleeping. Oh, oh. Oh my god. Ah! My titties. My chest is so sore. I did a chest workout. Ooh, it's sore. Ooh, it's sore. Oh, oh, yo, 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 yo. Oh, yo, yo. Tylenol for soreness? Yeah, maybe. In America, there are these things called doctors. Do you... Hi, doctor. I spent 2 weeks waiting for your availability. My lower back is sprained. Oh, why? Are you over 30? Yeah, I'm over 30, and it just feels weird. Okay, here, take some pain meds. Also, give me $1,000. What are you fucking... It's not really a doctor issue. If anything, you should go to a physical therapist. Physical therapists are very good. Very good. What feels good in my lower back is doing weighted dips. Kowalski, you know how sometimes I get mad at Masaigu for Japan posting? If I get one more post from you where you're reminding me you're in better shape than me, I'm gonna fucking lose it. Oh, you do weighted dips? Wow, that's crazy, man. That's so... you know, what I like to do is I like to get under my tractor and do push-ups with it or something. Fuck you. Vosh, $200 for physical therapy session where they use rubber bands to slowly stretch out your back. Okay, you can make fun, but I have been to a lot of doctor's appointments where nothing got done, and I have been to one physical therapy appointment for my back, and it fucking helped out more than like every doctor's appointment I've ever been to in my life. So you can make fun if you want. I think the thing that really helps with physical therapists is that, for one, all doctors are evil rapists, and I hate them. I don't like doctors, for one. For two, I think that, like, doctors are... How do I put this? Doctors are conditioned legally and socially to deal with patients in a way that conforms to the expectations of the healthcare industry. Whereas, like, a physical therapist is literally just a workout coach. So if you go there, they know how they're going to help you. They know what to do to help you. They're not super fucking arrogant because they've spent $300,000 on med school, and they're there to make you work. Whereas, like, with a doctor, I feel like the range of helpfulness from them sometimes is so variable, where they'll just fucking ignore problems because they've decided you have a different one. But yeah, they're placating you. But with a physical therapist, if you go there and you're like, my back hurts, can you help? And they show you some stuff and you're like, I don't think that helped. Then it's like, okay, let's try a different thing. Or you leave. There's no weird, like, professional... there's no like aura of condescension from them that you have to navigate through to get them to take you seriously, you know? Fruit fly. You got to listen to the doctors. When I go to the doctor, I listen to the doctor. Don't be annoying. Anyone who's dealt with enough doctors knows what I'm talking about, at least here in America. Maybe it's better in other countries. In general, lady doctors are better. Male doctors often suck in my experience. Yeah, that might or might not be true. It's just in my experience, when the doctor is a woman, they're not so fucking arrogant. I have never had a female doctor tell me what my problem was, in spite of my insistence. But I have had male doctors do that, and that could just be bad luck. At least you're not a woman and always ignored. It's not a competition. I'm not against you here. We're together against the Epstein class, parentheses, pediatricians or whatever. I mean, a lot of women say they only want a male doctor for OBGYN. Yeah, because they don't want to get pussy mogged. Imagine how bad it would feel if you went to the doctor or the OBGYN and you're like, yeah, my pussy broke. And then the doc's like, yeah, this is how it should be. And she pulls out her pristine, flawless pussy, you know? It's got like muscles. Yeah, amateur. This is what you want it to look like. All pussies have muscles? Wow, they really do take your humor away with the pink dot, huh? Ask for a male doctor at the OBGYN. It's a trans man. He still mocks you. That'd be fucked up. That'd be super fucked up. Yeah. 100%. Going to the urologist as a guy and specifying a female doctor and then she cockmogs you. I'd be so fucking mad. I'd leave a bad review on Yelp. PT helped me get rid of my back pain by doing just 3 glute bridges by my cheeks, trying to fuck the glute bridges. In my opinion, the ab tightened glute bridge is a core. By core, I don't mean like your midsection. I mean core is in like essential exercise. The glute bridge is like, it fixes so many problems, but so few people do it because it makes you look silly. What's a glute bridge? Just look it up. I'm not doing it on the ground in front of you. Yeah. My glutes will remain unbridged. You really should do them. They're like really good for you. Ask your partner for a back rub. You don't want a back rub. You want like a deep tissue massage kind of deal or something. Anyway. My back is killing me here, man. Pull-ups basically cure everything. If you can do them, I'd be willing to bet that like probably 10% of the population age 30 and up can do a full pull-up. But once you can do them, yeah, they're great. Just saying, as a black man who was on Medi-Cal trying to explain your symptoms to a Nigerian or Indian doctor, I swear I had to pull out my master's degree just for them to take me seriously sometimes. I can't really speak on like Indians or whatever, but my understanding is that black on black racism from Nigerians at African Americans is often like really fucking bad. You know what is a core exercise for men that gets rid of fat near their dick area? Trying to get a few inches out. There is no, listen, okay? There is literally no exercise that burns fat from any specific part of your body. It's not real. There's no such thing as it's completely 0% real. There's only general fat loss. The metabolic process that deconstructs your fat cells and uses them to fuel your body does not choose the area. It's a broad distributed metabolic process. Bro doesn't know about dick ups. Just get a tattoo of a bigger dick on your dick. Is this a chronic issue or did you just pull a muscle? I've always had lower back issues ever since I fucked up a deadlift in college. I used to be very strong. My max deadlift back in high school was 405. That's a good number. Don't think I'm hitting that one again. You can reduce your general fat. You can work out specific muscles to get the more tone and stuff, but you can't burn fat in specific areas. Yes, yeah, that's true. 1 rep max or doing reps with it? Jesus Christ, you people are unpleasable. Are you kidding me? 405 in high school, and you're going to ask me, oh, for reps, right? No! It was my 1 rep max! I was just curious. Hormonal changes can impact it. Hormonal changes can impact where new fat is generated, or not where it's generated, where it settles. But it doesn't determine where the fat gets burned from. That's why a lot of trans chicks do body recomp, where they start working out and lose weight, and then they try to gain weight back again, because now that they're on estrogen, the new fat will accumulate with a more female weight distribution, you know? But it doesn't do anything to reallocate the fat you already have. So if you're a chubby pre-estrogen trans chick, and then you take the estrogen, you have to lose the weight and then gain weight back, and then it goes to where you want it to be, more or less. I have a height-adjustable desk whirling in rags. Oh, nice, Masago. Lies, I'm literally doing it right now. If you were below 15% body fat when you started, it will simply remodel itself in the natural process of you burning and replacing fat over time. Yeah, to an extent. You don't always keep the exact same fat, but even that process requires exercise. If you live a sedentary lifestyle, the fat that you have on your body isn't really going to go anywhere, even if you don't eat that many calories. But if you maintain an athletic lifestyle while having a low body fat percentage, you will like slowly cycle through fat, replace it, so on and so forth. 15% body fat is very low, especially if you're a fucking chick. I mean, if you're a trans woman, obviously you're not starting with the same initial biases in weight allocation, but eventually you're probably not going to want to stay at 15. 15% body fat for a woman is very, very low. I mean, it's low for a guy too. People often wildly misestimate what body fat percentages look like. Like, you can have abs at like 25. Well, 25%, it'd be tough to have abs at 25% unless you had a very well-developed midsection. It can depend. It can depend. Yeah, I think charts like this are fake. Okay, a big problem with charts like this is that basically nobody that you meet in your life is up here at the top. You might think you know, so for one, I don't even think this is 10 to 12, but like maybe you know a guy who might be in this range, but it's not common. Basically nobody's here except for bodybuilders who are prepping for their competition, you know? Even relatively fit people usually hover around 20. And you can see abs on 20, for sure you can see abs on 20. Great vid on body type. I've seen this. I've seen this one, yeah. Yeah, look at Mr. 22% over there. I mean, he's pretty damn slim, no? 22%, look at that. "15% abs are visible but not defined." At 15%, you can have very well-defined abs. A lot of it really just comes down to how big your abdominal muscles are. Do your dang exercises, you know? Abs are like any other muscle. You do the workouts, you get the muscle. A lot of it's genetics. Yeah, the distribution of fat, you know? Yeah, abs are just like any other muscle. You want to work them out. Where are your abs? Comfortably nestled under about, I'd say, 15 pounds of belly fat. Yeah, very well protected. Thank you. I'm just looking at some references here. For women, it's way different, though. Way different. Because you got titties. And other stuff. Got like a... If you have a fat pussy, that's like 3 percentage points right there. Just up on the numbers. If you started regularly doing ab vacuums and general core exercises, you could have super well-defined abs even at your current body fat level. I am fatter than you think I am, but I understand and agree with the underlying point. I've always neglected core exercises. I'm trying to fix that now that I'm having more of a focus on calisthenics and practical strength. But I'm pretty weak, man. You know what my max plank is? Proper form plank. Like elbow plank, arms like this, body perfectly straight as a board, tip of my penis lightly grazing, lightly kissing the ground. Only, and I'm being honest with you, I don't want you to make fun of me, a mere 42 seconds. I know. Trust me. I think if I really pushed for it, I could hit 50 and my current level of physical fitness. But it's not a lot. My core is just not very strong. Got to aim for that 5-minute plank. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah. 5 minute. Yeah. You're lucky you don't store fat in your face. My brother in Christ, I have a beard. You have no idea what's going on over here, okay? Nor do I, by the way. You're bridging a big distance. You're probably well above average. Well, the American average isn't that impressive, but yeah. I'd like to, if I could ever hit a solid 2-minute plank, that would make me happy. But that's a long way away. That's a long way away. What I really want to do for fitness, what I really want to do is get good enough with the hangs and the pull-ups that I can do the variety of excellent core exercises that rely on you hanging from a bar. Like, I would, okay. We're just talking about this now, okay? So my problem is, if we're getting vulnerable with it, if we're, listening and learning, do a flagpole. Yeah. Okay. So I have mild, what's the term? It's not psoriasis. What is it called? Your sciatica. Sciatica. Mild sciatica, which makes sense because you know what my job is? And you know what my hobbies are? So of course I do, right? Of course I do, obviously. Hold on. As long as I'm up. But my lower back kills it for me. It just straight kills it for me, I can't even... We're doing this in confidence here. We're doing this with love in our hearts. Okay? I can't even do this. Watch. Whoop. Just sitting up with my legs flat to the ground like this, just this, that hurts my lower back like crazy. It's so tough. It's so tough. It's not my hamstrings. It's my lower back being pulled by my hamstrings. But because my lower back is weak, it pulls the spinal erectors. You got to stretch, boy? I do stretch. I feel like I can actually stretch pretty, I don't know, like, I feel like I'm as long as I'm embarrassing myself, Yeah. I feel like I can get a decent, self-dick suck range of motion when I'm standing, I think. But when I'm sitting, I can't. I don't know. Touch your toes? Well, you wouldn't even see it if I did. My feet weren't in the camera range. Seems like an underdeveloped core. No. It's for sure the spinal erectors getting tugged on. by my hamstrings when I'm sitting down properly, you know? I'm asking if you can touch your toes, lol. Yeah, if I got a bit of a warm-up. I don't think I could right now. Never mind. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Well, I touched the ground. But, you know. How's your hip hinge? Look, you can't keep asking me to do stuff because eventually I'm going to be winded and then it'll be embarrassing. I'm going to do another bit and then I'm going to like, you know, I'm trying to keep it cool. It's because you sit a lot. I know. Dude, my back is killing me, man. What? Perform the pacer test? I don't know what that is. Do one of these in back extensions? What I don't understand is why it's so difficult for me to sit up straight with my legs extended in front of me, but I can touch my toes easily when I'm standing up. Isn't that weird? Like, clearly my hamstrings are flexible enough. Tight hamstrings, but I can touch my thumbs to the ground without much trouble. Like, you know, my hamstrings have to be at least decently flexible. Strengthen lower abs. It's not the abs. You might be bending your knees more than you think when you're doing toe legs out. Maybe. Lower back extension. That is pretty good, but would that fix the issue? Maybe it's not even a flexibility issue. Maybe it's that my lower back injury is bad enough that feeling my spinal erectors getting tugged on by my hamstrings when I sit up straight, it just hurts. It's not because my lower back isn't flexible. It's just weak and injured. So if I just did some exercises. Can you do a Russian twist? Yeah, I do them. Yeah, I love Russian twists. I do them for my... I do the proper one. I do the proper one where you're like leaning back so you're just on your butt. You know, like jerking it. You're like at an angle. Do you feel the tightness in your back or in your calves? It doesn't feel like tightness in my lower back. It just feels like pain. If I feel anything in my calves, it's the sciatic nerve being mad at me because I haven't done the nerve flossing. I think what you're discussing is more of a glute issue at the moment. Maybe. My glutes are pretty strong. I know it might not show, you know, but I've got a good tush. Are you feeling pain in your back when you're doing Russian twists? Because it should only be tight. No, not when I'm doing Russian twists. Only when I'm sitting up straight. River's on the PC snoring right now, like loudly snoring. River, oh, she's happy. Maybe it is the glutes. I love it when Vosh discovers a basic principle of a healthy lifestyle and treats it like the ultimate panacea for all illness. Why are people always mean to me all the time? That's another question I have that I want answers to immediately. Why is everyone always mean to me forever? What did I do to you? Honestly. Apparently some Indian trans women have been seducing MAGA guys for years online. I could have told you that just from first principles, you know? Just stop reading the mean chats. Speaking of, what I want to try to do in the interest of fostering community and also because I think it's fun, I want to keep my peepers on the Reddit a little more often. So I'm going to take a look at the Reddit, then I'm going to dip. I'll be here tomorrow. before stream tomorrow. By the way, you want to know like insider info? The reason that I've ended stream early the past couple of days, it has just been my lower back. It's embarrassing, but sitting down, even with this, I almost said Mess and Margiela chair. What the fuck is wrong with my brain, man? This fucking, oh my God, I'm blanking. It's the chair company. Herman Miller, thank you. Even on the Herman Miller, we assumed you were going out on dates. Yeah, I did that too. But that wasn't why I ended early. Don't you have a standing desk? Yeah, but that doesn't fix the issue. Then I just have back pain while standing. All right, let me see. Your $2,000 Herman Miller. Well, first of all, I got it for $1,400, I think. And second of all, you having a nice chair does not fundamentally fix the problem. Bosch, the moment he talks about non-U.S. politicians. Stop calling me racist! In response to the host asking about his meeting with Zelensky as a counterpoint, I get your joke and I even like it, but your references no longer carry any meaning. According to you, Germany has collapsed. There's no internet there. The people aren't even having sex. The Hungarian people were laughing at you. It was said on this channel that even my young children won't talk to me, when in fact my children live with me. When the host interrupted him, no host in the studio ever dared to interrupt Hungary's most corrupt and most lying prime minister. When asked about the legal basis for closing the news service, for someone on this channel to accuse me of breaking the law looks like a thief accusing the police. Everybody on this news station and everyone who worked with Orbán is a traitor to Hungary and should be executed. The idea that like you can rape your country to death and just like profit off of misery and I don't remember saying that. That's fake. Suffering. They are more damaging to the country than any foreign adversary, any soldier, any spy, and they were Bosch the moment he talks about non-US politicians. What are you implying? I don't want to read comics right now. I love you. Effort post. Oh, fuck. Oh, God. Does being a leftist mean building a world where a life like mine, one I genuinely love, is seen as something to eliminate? Oh, God. Hold on. I've been watching Vosh since the side profile man bun debate pervert days I found him by accident years ago and was immediately hooked. Yay! Especially at that time in my life, political views, I was surrounded by a breath of fresh air. Here's where I'm stuck. I'm a leftist. I'm also a homesteader, a professional homemaker for a family of 7, a homeschool mom, and a Christian. Jesus Christ. We're checking off, like, incredibly marginal demographic boxes here, you know? That's crazy. Basically an accidental trad wife. This puts me in a no man's land, living my best Harvest Moon Stardew Valley life. I'm surrounded by a pretty right-leaning community. Yeah, it makes sense. Some of them are close friends. I've actually been able to soften a few of their views on left-leaning issues, but I still catch plenty of flack and get treated like the village idiot for my commie opinions. Then I look to the left and I get treated like a leper. I've been called a useless breeder. Okay, that's obviously not appropriate. I've heard people like, including Vosh, the chatters, talk about people with my lifestyle like we're terrible human beings. It's honestly pretty depressing. Okay, you are also aware of the fact that your lifestyle is Chud Central, but like, you're fine, right? I mean, look, I speak in generalities here, and oh my God, if ever a community deserved to be spoken of in generalities, the fucking homesteading, homeschooling, crunchy granola, you know, right way, like generalities should be invoked. But if it doesn't apply to you, you know. I'm a Christian. It's all good. You're not an evangelical. If you were an evangelical, you wouldn't be a fan of mine. I guess it's like the problem is that people who live these lives are almost always doing it for political reasons. It seems like you're doing it because you actually enjoy the lifestyle. The only thing that I would say definitively, like that I would actually like, I guess, harshly recommend is that you should really make sure that your children are being given the right educational opportunities, you know? Not just in like what school they go through or whatever, just make sure they don't turn out like that. Homeschooling especially, it can you know, it can isolate you in weird ways. There's a lot of accounts on this. It's not my personal experience, of course. I went to public school. Can't you tell, listening to me talk? Yeah, read to your kids. Yeah, no, I don't have an issue with this. You know, I don't have an issue with this. Shouldn't have hurt feelings over it. I don't think it's. You know, you're in Chud Central. It seems like you're doing good work. I mean, you're talking to people. You're trying to convince them. It's very good. Sorry, that was probably a little bit less of a fiery acknowledgement than she was interested in. You know, I'm just a little out of it. Also, my back fucking hurts. All right. Would you all forgive me if I read donos tomorrow? I'm just a little baby boy, you know? Yes, no, maybe, I don't know. Can you repeat the question? That's true. Everyone, I hope... Oh, got my titties out on that stretch. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I'm going to fucking chill. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay? Thank you for watching. And also, great convo with Dylan, you know? That was fun. Take care.